It's a short list in the SEC. Gamecocks, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. That's it when it comes to the coaches' preseason top 25 poll, the teams that didn't get any votes at all. 16 in the top 25, 5 others with votes, and then those other 3 teams still yet to make an appearance. And some room to grow might be the kind way to put it as we kick off a Wednesday morning show. Glad you're a part of the program. Speaking of kicking things off, man, defensive players speaking yesterday for Gamecock football after practice number 5, and they sounded pretty fired up about Clayton White and the new defense that the Gamecocks are going to run this season. Bill, anything stand out to you about what you heard yesterday? Jamar Brown, to me, said nobody is going to figure out, no offense is going to figure out this defense. That's the one that kind of jumped out to me in hearing those guys speak yesterday.
Yeah, there was. Well, that certainly is a quote that could come back to bite him in the rear end. So I'm sure that'll go up on some message boards or whatever. But I did find it entertaining because, Tim, you typically, and I know this is not from the defensive coordinator himself, it's from the players, but you typically hear, yeah, we're going to simplify it. And it's going to be easier on the guys, and we're gonna just make it easier. Just go out and make plays, and we're going to attack. And then I feel like yesterday you heard, "Oh man, this is complex. There's a lot. I'm trying to learn this thing." Like it was the first time I went, "Uh-oh, boy, this could be kind of entertaining," because it seemed like every player's like, "Yeah, man, it's a great defense." They were praising it, right? I mean, let's be clear. There was 2 sides. They were praising it. They really liked it. They do feel it's an attacking style. But everyone was like, "Oh, this is kind of complex. There's a lot to learn here." Like, we're the offensive have a hard time understanding it, but we're having to play catch up on it. Oh, okay. Coming off of the Will Muschamp era, where one of the complaints was the defense might have been too complex, that there was a little bit too much to learn, and maybe that was the problem. I went, "Oh, okay. Well, let's see how this puppy turns out."
Yeah, that didn't cross my mind, but I totally get where you're coming from on that. The way that we speak about a specific style, a specific system, the whole thing is always interesting, but it's always results driven, right? So if the Gamecock defense gets results this year, certainly Clayton White will get a ton of credit. And it was interesting to hear his players talk about the defense at this point. I mean, that was for the first time really in depth, I think, for a lot of guys yesterday. And I hear what you're saying. I think Mo Kaba kind of sees it a little bit differently from a linebacker standpoint. I think it's maybe a little more simplified from the linebacker standpoint when you only got 2 of those guys out there and you got 5 defensive backs instead. And I guess I can understand why. Bill, I don't think I ever thought I would see the day where a top 25 preseason coaches poll comes out. Louisiana Lafayette and Coastal Carolina are in that top 25. South Carolina is not. South Carolina and Tennessee are not. Let's put them both together. They are not even getting any votes. 24 and 23, respectively. Coastal's at number 24 in the country. Louisiana Lafayette's at number 23. They certainly are deserving of that after the seasons they had last year. I'm not trying to disparage any of the voters or anything like that. I'm just saying it is a unique time in college football, and will be very interesting to see if those programs can duplicate the kind of success they had last year with now the expectation going into this year, Bill, where Alabama is the runaway choice for number 1 overall. They got 63 first place votes. Clemson's in second. Oklahoma is in third. They're the ones that got the only other 2 first place votes out of the 65. Ohio State 4 and Georgia 5 rounds out the top 5. Texas A&M just on the outside looking at it at number 6. What'd you make of the preseason coaches poll?
I thought it honestly kind of lazy. But I mean, it's coaches, so I know that they're not exactly, there's always the joke that they pass it off to the sports information director to get it done and to have it filled out. But I'll say this, and maybe people won't agree with me on this morning. I think I would have based it more on who, like what quarterbacks. I kind of always start with that. What quarterbacks are coming back, and this is all a lot of fun to do right now when we're still 3 weeks from the season, and to debate who should be number one, and so forth and so on. And honestly, it doesn't matter anymore because the only poll that matters is the college football playoff. And I don't mind the fact that they wait until like week 8, I believe, to put that out. So this is more of just talking season, just discussion. Because to be honest, if you want my opinion, just based on Spencer Rattler coming back and Oklahoma having other players coming back, just for funsies, I'd have put them at 1, and I'd have had Georgia at 2, and I'd have had Clemson at 3. I did this yesterday. Alabama lost a lot of players, and to be the runaway number 1 with 63 first place votes, I feel like that's lazy. It's just saying, well, we know Alabama's going to be good. We'll just vote them number 1. Tim, again, to me, it's a fun thing to do this morning. Like if you started reading your Athlon or your Streets and Smith or, Phil Steele or whomever, if you've been sitting on the beach or wherever else you might sit and read, and you've kind of done some research on it, I think you could be a little bit more creative and maybe take a look at it a little bit different. But I felt like this was just going like, well, we know what 4 teams will be in the college football playoff, so we'll just throw them in the top 4. And Alabama's always going to be number 1, so yeah, 63 first place votes. Bryce Young could end up being a Heisman winner this year. It wouldn't be the first time we've seen a young player win the Heisman. So he's going to be really good, but I'd still like to see him improve a little bit. I've seen Spencer Rattler and, to a lesser extent, JT Daniels prove some stuff at quarterback. DJ up at Clemson, I think, has at least got a little bit of experience that I'd moved in my head. So that'd be fun if you want to do your top 5 this morning. I'm sure a lot of people just go, oh yeah, Alabama, top 5, top number 1 recruiting class year in, year out. Yeah, I'll just throw them at number 1. But I thought it was a little lazy. I would, again, Oklahoma and Georgia would be my number 1 and number 2 right now. That doesn't mean that's who I would pick to win the national championship. It's just preseason poll and where they start.
63 out of 65 votes is, I think, a direct reflection of what you saw last year, what you've seen in the last dozen years. It's 12 years in a row now. Alabama has been ranked in the top 3 in AP preseason top 25 polls from the coaches. It's a heck of a run. We were talking, obviously, remembering Bobby Bowden earlier in the week and those 14 straight years that Florida State finished in the top 5. Alabama on a similar type run, not quite as impressive because they finished outside the top 5 a couple of years ago, but talking about the preseason hype, it is certainly there. It's deserved, but I understand where you're coming from. I think this is not an exercise in creativity, the preseason top 25 poll from the coach's standpoint, and I think that it was showed yesterday by everybody basically saying, yeah, all right, Alabama, go ahead, and then filling it out from there. North Carolina, Cincinnati, Iowa State. To me, this is a lot of what college football has been, and a lot of the major complaint about the college football playoff. It's that you get a handful of teams, and then they separate themselves from the conversation or the rest of the pack, and it's relatively easy to lose interest in the college football as a whole outside of that handful of teams. When you have Iowa State at 8, North Carolina at 9, Cincinnati at 10, it is going to be very interesting to me to see if they can look like teams that can be legit national championship contenders or continue to be the programs that they've been in the last couple of years. Clearly really good, but to me a massive gap between those programs and the ones we mentioned before in Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Clemson, and Alabama in the top 5. How do you see that, though?
No, I think maybe he did this yesterday. I caught maybe a portion. I think he was just kind of throwing out there, if you realistically look at the beginning of the season, who has a chance, who you would else. I think you're right. Those top 5 teams. I mean, I guess we'd be shocked if the college. Would you be shocked if the college football playoff, or where would you rate your level of surprise, 1 to 10, if 4 of those top 5 teams didn't comprise the college football playoff?
It would be very surprising right now at this point.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe if Texas A&M's at number 6 sneaks in, Notre Dame's at 7. We've seen that happen before. Anybody outside of this top 7 in this year's college football playoff, I would be shocked. Let me put it that way. I would be very surprised if it's not 4 of those top 5 teams. I'm with you.
And again, Heath, I think, was doing this yesterday, so you could throw it back out there just for the morning crowd. But who outside of the top 5 do you think has the biggest chance to bust into the college football playoff? I know a lot of people yesterday said North Carolina because of Sam Howell, because they're in the ACC, and that's the easiest path to the college football playoff. I don't know what people want to think about Texas and Steve Sarkisian's first year. Does Iowa State, who is maybe is number 8 in the country according to the preseason poll, do they have a chance to sneak in if they can beat Oklahoma once this year? I don't know. I'd have to look real quick, and I'll pull it up here in just a second. Look at Iowa State's non-conference schedule. I'm going to go with it's not difficult. I highly, of course, they lost to Louisiana last year, so maybe it being not difficult doesn't really matter for them. But there are, I think there are things like that. So you look at outside of those top 5 teams, and you say, okay, who else can get into the college football playoff? I think we can all throw a team or two out there, but I mean, you probably put those chances at less than 25% right now. Is that what you would agree with?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So you get 9 games in the Big 12 conference. You play everybody else in the Big 12 still at this point with the 10 conference teams. They got Northern Iowa to start for Iowa State. Then the in-state rivalry against Iowa, which is a cross-conference matchup now with the Big 10 and the Big 12. And then at UNLV. That's the big non-conference schedule for Iowa State this year.
Yeah, so, again, they get Oklahoma Saturday, November 20th, and they've got to go to Norman, so that'll be a little bit difficult. They do get Texas in Ames on November 6th. So the schedule, actually, if you look at it, we'll see what Baylor is this year. But the schedule kind of backloaded because, as you mentioned, if you look at Iowa State's schedule, Iowa, that rivalry game comes again in Ames in week 2. Other than that, it's, as you said, UNLV, Baylor, Kansas State, all before the middle of October. They should be 6-0 going to Stillwater on October 23rd. And I would imagine with a loss here, a loss there, you could very well see Iowa State, within the top 5 at that point when they go to Stillwater. Or no, they get Oklahoma State. I'm sorry, they get Oklahoma State coming to Ames and then go to Morgantown October 30th. So then that starts the stretch of Texas Tech, Oklahoma, and TCU in November. So that might be who I'm willing to put in there because I think they're going to get pretty high up on that list if they can run all the way through the end of October undefeated before getting Texas, Oklahoma, and TCU in November. And maybe if they're able to sustain just one loss and then either or run the schedule out and then lose in the college football playoff, or if they lose just one and then win the Big 12, maybe they've got the best chance. Brock Purdy is back for them. Matt Campbell's a good coach. So maybe you look at them as having the best chance given that schedule.
It's an interesting top 25, and man, just thinking about to this time last year and the discussion, I think there were no Big 10 teams in the preseason top 25 of how things were shaking out. The original announcement of the cancellation and then pushing it way back a lot farther than other conferences starting. This year, it's nice to be back to a football discussion, and that's what we'll continue. Love for you to be a part of it this morning. 803-404-6100. If you would like to weigh in, you can call or text. Should be interesting to discuss college football at large and then get into the Gamecock football discussion, especially based off what we heard yesterday, where Bill is a little bit concerned about hearing a defense is complex and going to be very difficult to figure out because that can also lead to your players not knowing exactly what to do or getting confused, a breakdown or two, and that's never good for a college football defense. Going to hear from several different Gamecock football players and their specific thoughts about the new defensive coordinator, Clayton White, and what they're practicing right now, the comfort level, and then their specific roles. Also interesting. And then the other side of that, too, is what you can do at this time is, all right, who on the other side, who on the Gamecock offense is standing out is how you can get some information on preseason practice at this point from players. That's exactly what happened yesterday, and we'll continue to discuss it today for sure as we keep it rolling this morning. Good to see LeVar, Trey, David, Waddy all up with us on the live video stream, Facebook, YouTube Live, on Twitter as well. The station handle is at 1075 The Game. Just getting warmed up on a Wednesday morning talking college football in August. It's the early game. It's 1075 The Game.
So we felt like we had something. Butler, a junior defensive back, that so excited about this play.
Morning, Waddy. Morning, David. Frank. Wednesday morning, one step closer to college football.
It's like your buddy's leading us off on the old text line this morning.
Oh. That dude must be the saddest person ever. Like I literally feel bad for him.
Yep. Great question, Waddy. I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm guessing the answer is no. Still going black coffee, Bill, is the question.
No, but it's just I've kind of bounced back and forth. The answer is no this morning. I think I haven't had it in it's been a little. It was after July 4th. It was so. I mean, it's probably been a month. I just haven't ordered. I really did like that Phil Mickelson coffee, and I just haven't ordered anymore. And we had some Kona, and it was I didn't like that. It was one of those Kona brands, those Hawaiian coffee brands.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like real bitter. So I just switched back. I haven't ordered that. I still want to try the Black Rifle coffee. I've heard a lot of good things about that. I just haven't gone and bought any. Laziness has set in. So no, the answer is no. But it's not like I quit months ago. It's just been maybe the week after. It was right before media day. I ran out the week before media day. Oh, looks like it's going to be a beautiful morning there. Yeah, I need to try these Black Rifle coffees. I've just been lazy. Honestly, my attention has gone everywhere else. I've lived in this place for a year, and now I'm kind of trying to do like a few small, just like renovations to get it ready for football season. I'm trying to finish the kids' rooms, get some TVs hung on the wall. Now that we've kind of seen some stuff and decided what we like and what we don't like.
Innovations. Good to know, Waddy. See if we can get Bill on that.
Yeah, that's one that I mean, I heard a bunch of good stuff about it.
Point, Logan. Very good point. Oh, nice work, Jim. Let's come back with number one. Straight in, please.
Got it.
Yeah, that's the one thing. I need to get back into working out. I've not, again, laziness, but I've had the kids a lot this summer.
Ooh, be glad he didn't have a sick 1-year-old yesterday.
Oh,
Yes, nothing made that dude happy.
I can see that. What, just a little stomach issue, or
I think just some like drainage stuff and maybe
Hmm.
your problem. 1-year-old stuff.
1-year-old?
Not happy.
How does the 6 and 8-year-old respond to the 1-year-old being sick? Do they just completely disappear?
Yeah, pretty much. Then they'll try to like do their usual routine and make him laugh and stuff, and not realize that is not helping.
So they're trying to help. They're trying to help. Just they don't understand that.
A for effort.
We watched that Lego Master show last night. Have you ever? I don't know how late you let your kids stay. It was on from 8 to 9, where they build the Lego. It was kind of entertaining. I mean,
well, my kids have gotten into something similar, like marble races. Crazy. They know a lot more about countries than me because they're countries in these marble races.
marble.
100 countries last night.
Okay.
Defensive scheme and some guys that are maybe standing out to you?
No one will figure this defense out. Not one offense that we play will figure this defense out. This defense is fun to play. It's fun to be in. It's complex. It's all over the place. It's really fun to play. It's really fun to play in.
Gamecock safety converted linebacker Jamar Brown there, answering the question from Gamecock Central's Colin Taylor in yesterday's media availability after practice number 5.
This is the exact comment, basically, Bill, that gives you some pause, some reservations maybe about what the Gamecock defense might be, or some just does it bring up some possible some bad memories with what we've heard in the past. I think mainly from the Will Muschamp era, but I think maybe we got this from Lorenzo Ward previously as well. Sometimes when there were struggles, like, all right, we're going to simplify it for the guys so they can play fast and not be overly concerned or over analytical and make sure they are just playing instead of thinking. So that's exactly where your mind went.
Well, I think now, granted, it's a player saying it and not the coach. But I mean, isn't that one of the standard lines of a coach coming in? We're gonna simplify and we're gonna attack more. Simplify and attack. And this does not sound like simplifying the offense. Now, I guess as I listen to it again, maybe Jamar Brown means it's complex for the offense. I don't know, but it does. Based on several players saying it yesterday, yeah, you instantly go, oh boy, what is complex about it? Is it being picked up easily? It'll be very interesting to see. I don't know how I'll take it. Jamar Brown, I think you just mentioned moving to safety from linebacker. I was reading yesterday him talking about moving back and forth from linebacker to safety to linebacker back to safety under Will Muschamp, and now kind of being happy about settling in on one position. He's also a guy that just needs to stay healthy because they really like his athleticism and speed. But we'll see. It'll be interesting. That was not some comments that I would have expected to hear yesterday about the defense being complex and a lot to learn.
Well, we also heard, too, that, and we'll let you continue to hear from Gamecock defensive players throughout the morning. I know at least one of them said that the coaches are surprised at how well, I think this is Mo Kaba, the linebacker, at how well the defense has absorbed the information and that they're going to have 100% of it available in the whole thing. So there's that as well. It reminded me, as you were talking about it, one of the last times we heard from Clayton White on the podium, he was talking about how defense is math. It's simply just a math equation where he, as the defensive coordinator, has basically charged with figuring out how to get more numbers to the ball than the offense has. And that makes a lot of sense to me. Now, how you go about that can be very complex, I'm sure. And to me, I think this might just be the product of switching defensive systems. And I also heard from Carlin Splatel yesterday, the Division II transfer up from Assumption University, and he was talking about, well, defenses are pretty much the same, and there's just different terminology. And he made the transition sound a little bit simpler, a little bit more simpler than some other players. But I think it's also a lot about what position you play, Bill, and then what you're being asked to do, how you're being asked to do it. Like Zach Pickens on media day the other day, it was shocking to hear him. He was like, "Yeah, we actually have plays where we're going to be able to go do things instead of just occupy blocks."
Right.
Well, that seems pretty obvious. What you mean you didn't have that on the defensive line previously? And then to hear, I think it was Jimmy Lindsey, who I was hearing from on media day as well, talk about being aggressive, and then the difference between first and second down and third down, where if you're going up the field early on in a drive on first or second down, then you're creating some big gaps, and that's not good defense necessarily. That's not what this defense is going to do. But on third down, that's when you'll see more of that stuff. Again, it's all talk. It's all preseason stuff. To me, this is theory versus reality, right? This is how you go into meetings and you talk about it, you practice things. It's going to be wildly interesting, Bill. I think one of the biggest indictments we've got of the Will Muschamp era was after Muschamp's original offensive coordinator, Kurt Roper, left, and then you heard from players in that Outback Bowl where Brian McClendon took over. And I know it's one of those comments that you've harped on and repeated several times about offensive players saying, yeah, we actually ran the plays we worked on in practice. I mean, that's a massive indictment on your coaching staff, not spending their time where you need to spend the time. And feel like right now in camp, it is all about making sure that your team is 100% on the same page and doing what you need them to do, will have available what you need to have them available during the season, as opposed to coming up here in the next couple of weeks where you start to actually game plan about a specific opponent and you narrow things down and the whole thing. So how it goes from the theory where we are right now to the reality of playing week in and week out, and especially doing it against some really good offenses in the SEC, this evolution with Clayton King and a new defense is going to be Clayton White, is going to be really interesting to kind of keep tabs on and to see how or if this narrative changes from the players that we hear from.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through here just for anybody thinking that they would be excited to hear people talk today. Today is actually listed as a day off. There will actually be no media availability. Friday, they will have an afternoon practice, and it will be open to the media from stretch in the first 4 periods, but no actual media availability. The first scrimmage is going to be this coming Saturday at 3:15. Not open to the public at Williams-Brice Stadium. Coach Beamer will have a post-practice media after the scrimmage, but I'm just kind of glancing. We won't hear from Clayton White and Marcus Satterfield until next Thursday after practice. That'll be their weekly. That will be a difference. We'll get a weekly media session with Clayton White and with Marcus Satterfield. It'll start next Thursday, though, after practice number 12. So by then they'll have had a scrimmage under their belt. They'll have had several practices to kind of look at and analyze and be able to tell us what they're seeing or what they're thinking. But I'm just kind of glancing, for those of you wondering or planning your day around, being able to listen to what some coaches or players are saying. No media availability today. It's the off day. Tomorrow they will practice, but no media availability. And then Friday you'll at least get some of the videos that I've seen the guys putting out each and every day. And then Saturday, Shane Beamer will have post-scrimmage media at Williams-Brice Stadium.
Well, speaking of videos and practice, Shane Beamer, did you see the one that Gamecock football put out yesterday? Beamer, very active in a special teams drill, it looked like, and chasing some guys down the field. And the energy certainly mentioned and commented on by several assistant coaches and players and the whole thing. You see that one?
I did. It looked like he had actually changed shirts too, because I believe it started with him wearing a garnet shirt in the morning. Then it looked like when he was chasing, I could be wrong, but it looked like he was wearing a gray one there as he was chasing down somebody from behind, and I guess trying to work on some blocking or tackling in a special teams drill.
Yeah, if you've been on site at all lately, you can understand why you might have these days.
Yeah, heard it's warm.
It's crazy. But again, what you were talking about, Bill, about when we're going to hear from both coordinators, Marcus Satterfield and Clayton White. To me, this is where we can make a better determination, I think, of how exactly to take some of these comments from players, because this is when coaches will be asked about the players' comments, and then they can either lend a lot of credence to those comments or say, yeah, Jamar, he's a little out there, or whoever it might be. It's always really interesting to me to hear how coaches talk about what the players are saying too, whether they say, yep, he's really trusted, he's a leader, and the guys are following exactly his lead, or I can't believe that guy said that. He's way off. It's part of the way that we can get a sense of where the leadership is thinking, and then where specific players are thinking. As part of the disconnect, I think we spoke about and has been well documented, not being able to hear from coordinators on a consistent basis in the previous regime, Bill.
That look, it's something that 5 years ago I would have thought that was just the natural thing to do in college football, and yet somehow 5 years later, it's you're like, oh, good, we get to actually hear from the coordinators and hear what they're thinking and what they were trying to accomplish in a game, and why maybe this went wrong or that went right or whatever it may be. So we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot in terms of media availability, going from Steve Spurrier to Will Muschamp and now back to Shane Beamer. It will be interesting. Again, I was just kind of glancing at an old email here. Next, you really won't get media availability. You got Shane Beamer, as I mentioned, on Saturday after the scrimmage, and that'll be interesting to hear. But next Tuesday will be the next time we really hear from anybody else. Offensive players will be available, defensive players on Wednesday, and then again Satterfield and Clayton White. At that point, we will really be counting down the days until the start of the season here is August 28th is when the first few games occur, and then obviously September 4th is when the Gamecocks and the Tigers get going.
Hearing from several of you right now on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line, 803-404-6100 is the number. I'm with Bill 100%, Sharp Spur says. Not a lot of our texts started that way, Bill.
No, not many do start that way.
He continues by saying, talking about the comments from the safety, Jamar Brown, we don't need to drop any challenges to our opponents at this stage. Reminds me too much of the talk last year and the year before. And he ends with the Go Gamecocks. I don't think we are hearing this in the same way. Maybe it was because it was well into the Will Muschamp and Travaris Robinson era, and it wasn't a new defense. I feel like when anytime anything is new, a new system comes in, you hear a lot of talk about it. I feel like we were talking about the offense a lot more this time last year with Mike Bobo being the new offensive coordinator, as opposed to the defense and especially the system they were running, Bill.
Well, there was a lot of things. There was a lot of things that Mike Bobo could come in and get the offense up and running. I'm trying to remember. Had practice started at this point last year? Tim, do you remember exactly when? Was it a two?
It's a great question. I think it was
preseason camp.
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I do remember how they were talking about what a long preseason it was, so it might have been underway. It might have still been. I think they ended up pushing it back and did basically the conditioning portion of the preseason for a couple of weeks here in the single digits or the early part of August, and then maybe it was about a week from now where they kicked off officially preseason practice because the season had been pushed back for all the COVID implications. But I do remember specifically that Mike Bobo was kind of setting Gamecock fans on fire with his comments about huddling and maybe slowing things down, and the way that college football has evolved, not for the better, and the whole thing. I feel like offense was certainly more of the focus and the conversation with a new offensive coordinator last year this time than the defense was.
Well, and you also had what was, I think, developing into a quarterback controversy. Again, timeline kind of eludes me, but when Colin Hill was being named starter over Ryan Helinski at that time, and what people were saying about that. So, a lot was happening last year, and because of that quarterback situation and everything else, obviously, the offense was. And Marshawn Lloyd, I want to say, went down in September or maybe late August. So there was a lot of excitement to see him. Kevin Harris was still kind of an unknown at that moment. And so there was a lot that was being discussed in regards to the offense at this time last year and what it would look like is you knew you had J.C. Horn, who was going to be a first-round draft pick. There's Earl McQuamu, who you expected to be pretty good. Jordan Birch coming in, Zach Pickens. So you thought the defense would obviously be a lot better than it was. So a lot of the discussion centered around the offense.
Papa Joe texts in, if we give up 30 points to Eastern Illinois, it won't matter what defensive scheme we have. That's where the rubber meets the road. Also, please stop the run, Gamecocks. Joe is pleading this morning. Joe, if the Gamecocks give up 30 points to Eastern Illinois, that is not where the rubber meets the road. If it is, then it's going to be a long, long year. I think a lot of people hoping at least that where you get the true test is week number 3, and you can handle Eastern Illinois, a bad FCS team just here in the spring, and then East Carolina, who's been on a program downturn for several years, and Mike Houston trying to dig East Carolina out of it. Looks like he's on his way to doing that, but certainly not at a level that South Carolina wants to be at this point, even with the disappointing couple of years under Will Muschamp. But I would certainly argue at this point it's much more week 2 as opposed to week number 1. If you see some issues of week number 1, there's going to be a lot of talk and a lot of discussion about the defensive scheme and system and the job that Clayton White is doing as defensive coordinator. But that's where this staff is. That's where this program is at this point. And going to continue to let you hear from some of these players as we roll on this morning. Rick Sandage was really entertaining to listen to yesterday. I didn't realize his personality was quite as energetic and fun as it is. It was on display yesterday. It was a comment that his parents hopped on him that really stuck out. Let you hear that as we continue to roll on. Bill, I know this is a guy that you've talked about multiple times as a big-time recruit coming onto the defensive line for Gamecock football. He talked about how his career hasn't quite lived up to those expectations and how he plans on changing that this year. Hear it when we come back. It's the early game. It's 107.5 the game.
So do you know Eastern Illinois' record last year?
Was it 1-5 or something like that?
Yeah, that is correct.
I mean, I was really paying attention to the
I figured, let's see. The most points they scored all year was 28 when they beat Tennessee Tech.
Oof. I believe you. And that was formerly coached by Marcus Satterfield. Is that correct?
I believe you're right, yes. A 28-24 victory.
And then what were the other scores of their games? I assume you have that schedule pulled right up.
Yeah, they lost to Bobby Petrino in Southeast Missouri State. I believe that's Bobby Petrino, 47-7. UT Martin, 28-15. Tennessee State, 21-20. Then they finally got the victory, 28-20 over Tennessee Tech. Then lost to Murray State, 41-27. And Jacksonville State, 44-23.
Now, Petrino's at Missouri State.
Is there a Missouri State and a Southeast Missouri State?
Yes, sir.
Are you serious?
Absolutely. It's a pretty big state.
Because Missouri is the place that should have so many options because it's such a fantastic state.
I was going to say.
Let's see their football features.
Actually, I'd rather go to Missouri than Iowa.
Coaching staff. I can't even say their coach's name. I would guess Tom Matukowicz. It's probably not how you pronounce it.
let's go back to 2019. Maybe COVID got them, tripped them up last year. No. They were 1-9. Oh, 1-11. I'm sorry, they were 1-11 in 2019.
That makes more sense. So the Gamecocks have. Wait a second. Let me do the math here. They've won 6 games in the last 2 years. They have triple the amount of wins that Eastern Illinois has in the last 2 years.
Well, yes, in Eastern Illinois' defense, though, Tim, Eastern Illinois has only played 18 games compared to South Carolina's 22.
Mhm.
So if Eastern Illinois wins its next 4 games, they'll be equal.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Got it.
We're about to head back in.
Cool. Can we go straight into Sandage, please?
The one about his parents?
Yes, ma'am.
He is kind of a hoot, I must
I
say.
think this is Eastern Illinois' first game against an FBS opponent. Oh, no, they lost to Indiana 52-0 back in 2019.
Damn.
And then we'll do number 2. Actually, let's come in with number 2, and then I'll set up number 3.
Okay.
What is your impression?
It's different. It's been a little of a struggle trying to understand the defense, but it's like it's really special. It's going to be some
Fine, yep.
like high impact coming this season.
That's defensive lineman Rick Sandage there talking from Gamecock football yesterday. And I think that plays right into what you were talking about earlier, Bill. Jamar Brown talking about how no offenses are going to be able to figure out the Gamecock defense. And then when you hear that, your eyebrows go up a little bit and say, all right, but is their own defense going to be able to figure out the defense and exactly what the coaches are wanting to do? And when you get any kind of communication breakdown, that is always a bad sign for a defense. What Rick Sandage had to say, showing more of his personality, was really interesting. I believe this is a Q&A about exactly what the coaching staff is doing, the offensive conditioning program, the strength and conditioning program, and led by Luke Day, and how that's affected him. Wanted to let you hear this before we get back into our discussion. More from Rick Sandage here.
Coming off the summer with the strength program, how do you feel noticeably stronger, like quicker? Like
Yeah, I looked at my body pics, and going from winter, like I look like chubby, and I feel like I improved, my body improved a whole lot. Like I slimmed down a lot. Even when I went home for the break, like my parents used to say, I'm fat. And then when I got back, they was like, oh, okay, I see a difference. So Coach Day and the staff has most definitely been making my body a whole lot better.
Again, Rick Sandage, the defensive lineman, going into his 4th year at Carolina. That question asked by the Big Spurs, Hale McGranahan, I think, and a good insight into a guy who says he's the guy on the team that is going to be dancing and keeping everybody kind of loose a little bit, showing off his personality, just who he is. Bill, what do you make of Rick Sandage to this point, what you heard yesterday, and what you expect this season?
Yeah, I think he is telling it like it is. His career has not lived up to what he had hoped for. He was obviously a big time recruit coming out of Concord, North Carolina, and was the centerpiece of I think the 2018 recruiting class or 2017 recruiting class. And look, right now my memory of Rick Sanford is his Sandage, not Sanford, Rick Sandage. My memory of him, the best game he's played in his career came at the right time when he teamed up with Javon Kinlaw, and they were able to help South Carolina against Georgia in that victory over there in Athens in 2019. And that was when I thought he was kind of turning a corner and would end up being the player that South Carolina kind of expected. Now, he didn't play much last year. I think that might have had something to do with some COVID issues that he might have gotten. That's never been confirmed. So that's kind of a little bit of speculation, but I've heard enough around the program to believe it to be true. How does he bounce back this year? Certainly he's going into what should be his senior season. He could go to the draft. He could be a guy again that would probably be draftable, I guess. And when I say that, I mean, 4th, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round with a good year. He could work his way into that, but he needs to have a good year. And so I'm interested to see him, the interior of that defensive line. If you could get him and Zach Pickens working together, I think that would continue to help solidify the middle of that line where South Carolina's had problems getting gashed by the run. Who was it who just said just stop the run?
Yeah, that was Joe.
Having Rick Sandage in there along with Zach Pickens would certainly give you two guys who, at least in recruiting, were wanted by everybody and were highly thought of, to go along with Jordan Birch and J.J. Ngbare on the outside.
Richard texting in says, just great to hear kids, especially the front seven, excited about the defense, feeling like they have the ability to make plays other than just sitting there occupying space. And I bring that up because I'm looking at Rick Sandage's stats, and I think it's certainly worth bringing up and almost necessary to bring up if we're going to discuss a guy and his productivity in his 3-year career at Carolina going into year number 4, and his most productive year by far is year number 1. And I think Rick Sandage's numbers, real quickly, he had 19 tackles in year 1, 2.5 tackles for loss. Since then, he's had a total in the last 2 seasons of 11 tackles and 1.5 tackles for loss. So to me, very representative, I think, of the main complaint Gamecock fans had towards the end of the Will Muschamp era is just a lack of development. We've heard that multiple times on the show, and then I try to point out the other examples, right? A guy like Ernest Jones developing into a 3rd-round pick in the NFL draft, J.C. Horn obviously going as the first defensive player taken there. There are some positive examples, but I think Rick Sandage really represents, to me, and hearing him talk about it as well, just a level of frustration clearly with his lack of production, and wants to, what he said, he's going to get back to the high school Rick, I think, is his plan for this season. To me, Rick Sandage might be the best representation of a guy who comes in pretty highly touted, and, man, on paper, it looks like he's exactly what you need on the defensive line, and then the next 3 years, the production doesn't match the expectation, and by a long shot, I think it's fair to say.
No, and it hasn't. And as a matter of fact, as you were reading those stats, I know you mentioned 11 tackles, 11.5 tackles last 2 years. What was his number of tackles last year? Because I would take the under on 2.5.
He finished with 5 tackles last year.
Okay, so 6 the year before. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. And again, how much of it is scheme? I don't know. It feels like we're learning more about a scheme that was not designed for the defensive linemen to make tackles or sacks. It's kind of weird to hear now what we're hearing, and I don't know how much stock I put into it. It's in the past, and you move forward. But certainly, again, it's a young man that needs to stay healthy. We've heard, again, as you typically do, this is normally part of the talk of August, how great the strength and conditioning program was and how everybody feels in better shape. You heard some of that from him yesterday, talking about how he looked in January versus how he feels and looks now. So, again, we were talking off air on the live stream. Eastern Illinois is not good at football. All right, they're not good. They were 1-5 last year in the FCS. They were 1-11 the year before. The last time they played an FBS team was the second week of nothing. So the opener is a chance, though, to go out and that defense gain confidence against an overmatched opponent and kind of use it as a scrimmage game, which is just for the sake of winning and feeling good about yourself. That's kind of what South Carolina needs right now.
And they need a guy like Rick Sandage to step up and be the player he was expected to be when he came onto campus, when he got recruited as a 4-star guy. And even if, Bill, I get the defensive system maybe not designed to build up a bunch of stats on the defensive line, especially in the interior defensive line, well, you got to be able to stop the run. And South Carolina hasn't been able to do that. That's why Joe put that in his original text. Now he's asking to talk about the offensive system and how that's going to be designed. Well, maybe we'll touch on that as we roll into hour number 2 here on the early game on 107.5 game.
All right, get a little bit more coffee here. Ease our way into the day. Oh, let's see if it doesn't blind you.
No, we're
You
only
see that
blinded
sun?
by. That's pretty.
Looks good.
Sun coming up.
Usually we're just blinded by his, his appearance, his aura.
That's right.
Glowing personality.
That's it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go turn down some monitors because I'm hearing about 3 sound sources of our station right now.
Awesome.
Yeah. Great.
What you guys got going there? Oh, those award-winning personality. Thank you, Josh. Good morning to you too, sir. Oh, excuse me. I'll get you going.
Much better. I have no more people in my house.
Oh, that has to feel good.
And even the son and spouse are up in Illinois.
Oh, wow. You're
Dog.
really
It took. I was like, wait, Trent got married?
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, the dogs, I have to get them from the kennel litter today, but like last night was just eerily quiet. Wow.
Those are the best nights. I could use a very quiet night. That's why I thought about going out to Vegas this weekend.
Those two sentences are interesting side by side.
Well, that's why. So, but there's a reason behind it. There was a buddy of mine who got there was kind of like an issue. For another friend of ours for his anniversary booked a hotel, whatchamacallit, a suite, like a really nice one. And then something happened and the other guy couldn't go. And so I was talking to him. He's like, man, if you can just get out there, you got a free suite. It's non-refundable. And so we looked at it. But as you just said, those two sentences side by side, it's do I want to like relax and sleep in or spend the weekend in Vegas? And I'll be honest, I'm just so worn down. And then I know with football season coming up, it's like this weekend and next weekend are kind of my last 2 weekends to like kind of rest, because then after that.
Yep.
So.
Well, if you want to relax in the great outdoors, I do have a yard to mow.
Well, I don't know if the grounds crew here wants to come do your yard after they do mine, so I can check with them if you want.
I'm trying to figure out how to, because I still, having to be careful with the wrist and all. So it's like one-handed arm. Like, how's that? Yeah.
Riding. How do you not have a riding lawnmower?
We did. We had a zero turn for a while, and I was like, I didn't use it that much. I would just always prefer to mow. I mean, it takes. If I bag the front yard, it takes like 45 minutes to do the front, and then probably about 15 to do the back. But,
you're talking about relaxing. I was telling the kids last weekend about when I was growing up. About this time every year, my grandparents would take us all up to Hot Springs, North Carolina, and we'd do whitewater rafting. And I actually was kind of I was like, man, I need to take the kids and go do that. They need to go do that one time, even if they, fall out of the raft and hate it for the rest of their life. It's a memory that they need to have, like just because I've got some
impending drowning. They must have that memory.
Yeah. The little bit of the fear that comes along with it and the smells that you get from some of the unwashed, guides.
The smell of fear.
Yeah, that's but I was looking, but they do have in Hot Springs, it's called treehouse cabins, I think. It's actually pretty cool, and it wasn't overly expensive. And each little cabin had a hot tub. It actually looked like a good little getaway. Treehouse cabins, yeah, it's actually pretty cool. Hot Springs treehouse cabins. They're actually cool little. And it's up there by the Appalachian Trail. There's actually I don't drink beer, but there's a brewery, right? Big Pillow Brewery kind of downtown. Of course, I don't know if y'all have ever been through Hot Springs or ever been up there. There ain't a whole lot. Like it's
Right.
It is the exact 180 of Las Vegas.
Right.
There's a place in Asheville called is it Asheville Glamping? You know, so it's like that glamorous camping thing, and there's one that's a tree house, there's one that's a dome. I think there's one that's a one of those the silver campers, like the 50s.
What is it? The wind tunnels, or I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, kind of the Windstream.
Sounds right.
But yeah, kind of some fun things. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd probably be a very relaxing weekend.
So that's
Airstream. Yeah, Craig's got an Airstream. We were way off. Windstream, Airstream. It's all
I said Airstream.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I thought you said Windstream.
Roll the tape back.
Sorry, I believe you.
All right, Sports Flash is almost over.
I tell you what, water looks really calm out there.
Good day.
Russell's Reserve is always good. We had I had Angel's Envy last night. We did the Italian chicken kebab skewers. No, there's not. I don't list them as kebabs because there's no like peppers or anything on them. But from Old Timey Meat Market, you get the Italian chicken skewers. They're delicious. And little Angel's Envy. Bought a bottle of Buffalo Trace yesterday, but didn't get into that last night.
So we all need to go to Bill's this weekend. You're up. 175 the game. What's your name?
Learn to live and love the moment. What are those coaches smoking out there? Michael says there ain't no way Georgia belongs ahead of Florida. Talking about the preseason coaches poll that came out yesterday in college football. And that one comment on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line this morning makes me smile very large, because this time last year, there was no way Michael or anyone else in our country was that upset about a preseason top 25 coaches poll in college football. We've come a long way. And I am thrilled that Michael can be as upset as he is about Florida not being ranked ahead of Georgia in the preseason coaches poll for college football, because that means we are back a lot closer than we were in 2019 than we were this time last year in a lot of ways. Florida at number 11. I was a little bit surprised they were as down as far as they were, actually, Bill. I think a lot of it is we still don't know about Emory Jones. I know a lot of people are expecting big things from him. And another text in asking about preseason players of the season from Joe M. says, who your preseason offensive and defensive player of the year for our Gamecocks. He goes with Kevin Harris and Rick Sandage. Interesting that he throws Sandage in there. We just heard from him before about 10 minutes ago or so, talking about his impressions of the defense at this point, and then how his parents used to call him fat when he would go home, and no longer is the case, and went through his numbers in 3 seasons as a Gamecock. Pretty pedestrian, and only combined 11 tackles in the last couple of years. Not what a 4-star recruit is expected, and he's expecting to see the old high school Rick in his senior season, or his 4th year, I guess we have to say these days. But my point here is just that the fact that we can get back to those football very centric discussions as opposed to discussing if we're even going to have football or where we were at this time last year is a nice reminder for me, Bill. I know we were talking in the video live stream over the break about kind of wrapping up the summer and maybe taking one final trip or just resting up until school and football start and the whole thing. It sure is nice to be back in this place as opposed to where we were this time last year. It
is, and again, it's fun to debate and argue the preseason poll. Michael, if you're still listening, I'm going to need an explanation why you would have Florida ahead of Georgia. You can't just text in and accuse coaches of smoking and not have reasons here as to why you believe Florida should be ahead of Georgia. And where would you have Florida? And I'll even throw it out there. Who would be your top 5 right now? Tim, I should have written this down in the first segment, but I believe my top 5, I said I would actually have Oklahoma at number 1, Georgia at number 2, Clemson at 3. I'd probably go Alabama at 4, and I'd probably have Ohio State at 5. That's I need to sit down really over the next 6 or 7 days and really do a deep dive into a couple different teams. Texas A&M with a new quarterback, Ohio State with a new quarterback, Notre Dame new quarterback. Iowa State does have Brock Purdy back. North Carolina has Sam Howell. I was looking at that North Carolina schedule, by the way. We were talking about in the first segment last hour teams that could crash that top 5 and work their way into the top 4 and have a chance for the college football playoff. North Carolina does have games against Miami and Notre Dame this year, which I think, Tim, you would list as a little bit more difficult schedule than Iowa State. Would you take, if you're Iowa State, you got Iowa State has a game against Iowa and a game against Texas, a game against Oklahoma State, and then obviously the game against Oklahoma. So that would give them 4 games against preseason top 25 opponents. North Carolina has Miami, and I believe it's just going to be Notre Dame. Am I right on that? So 7. So North Carolina with just 2 preseason coaches poll top 25 games. Iowa State with 4. So I think maybe you'd lean toward North Carolina having a better chance. I think I said in the last hour Iowa State, but now as I kind of break it down that way, maybe you go with North Carolina having the better chance to crash the college football playoff there if they can go through with just 1 loss. So that you're right. To go real quick, to go back to your point, it's a lot more fun to do what I just did there and go through the top 25, this completely irrelevant coaches poll, top 25. And whether you want to rank the top 5 teams or you want to do what I just did, say, all right, let's compare this team's schedule with that team's schedule, that is a whole lot more fun than what we were doing this time last year. It feels far more natural.
Well, and back to Michael's point about Florida, if you believe Emory Jones is the next guy for Dan Mullen, right, and he will be just as good as Kyle Trask, if not better, then you can make the case, if you look at that schedule, that – oh, man, it looks really good. You got basically a couple of warm-up games to start the season with Florida Atlantic and then at South Florida, where I know a lot of people like Jeff Scott, former Blythewood high school coach for a year, and then a longtime Clemson assistant, and they understand he's a good coach, but that program nowhere near to challenging Florida at this point. It doesn't seem like in year number 2 of his tenure. And then it's Alabama at home. If somehow you could pull that upset against Alabama, it is pretty much smooth sailing for the rest of the way for Florida in a lot of ways. I mean, you could make the argument that 2 toughest games left on the schedule at Kentucky and at LSU for Florida as I look at their schedule. So,
wait a minute. What did you say their first 2 toughest games were?
No, they're not tough games at all. Their first 2 games are basically glorified warm-up games for Alabama in week 3.
Oh, okay. All right. I see what you're saying.
South Florida. Then saying if you can pull that upset and what you talking about how you feel like it was lazy for the coaches to all vote for Alabama except for 2. I think there were 2 first-place votes for Oklahoma, 63 first-place votes for Alabama, who's replacing a lot. I think this just goes to show you the respect that coaches have for not just this year's Alabama team, but the Alabama program, and knowing the depth that Nick Saban has developed there, that Yeah, you can lose a lot of guys, but sometimes the guys replacing them are even better than the last All-Americans. And that's just where that program is. And I feel like I understand where you're going with your preseason top 5. To me, it's a little bit too creative, but we'll see how it ends up working out because Nick Saban is turning 70 years old. It is not going to last forever, believe it or not. Talking about Bobby Bowden recently was a good reminder for me how you're not just destined to win in college football forever because your program is at a certain level at one time or over a period of time, even, for a decades-long dominance for 14 years in a row in the top 5 where Florida State was. We see where their program is now. We've seen Alabama down before. I'm guessing in our lifetimes we'll see it down again. I don't think anybody thinks that's going to happen under Nick Saban's watch, but will be very interesting to see if they live up for the hype because Todd hit us up. He's kind of the resident Alabama fan of the show. Hit us up on that Cool Care Heating and Air text line as well. It says, good morning, fellas. Seems like the more things change, the more they stay the same. The same sport's greatest dynasty, the Kings of college football, received 63 of the 65 first-place votes in this week's coaches' college preseason rankings. Not surprising. Roll Tide.
I think Todd just enjoys sticking it to Clemson fans right now. I think that's why he takes in with the Kings of college football. He likes rubbing it in Clemson fans' face. I still look. Alabama's good. Clemson's good. Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Georgia to me are all really good teams.
And wait a second, Michael, who was complaining about Georgia, doesn't belong ahead of Florida. Did you see he hit us back up?
He's got Florida at 4, Georgia at 5.
Right. So let's not think he's completely off base here. It looks like to me he's got Florida at 5 and Georgia at 6. Right? Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame, then Florida, then Georgia. I think is what he put there. And he says he's from Florida, moved here in 2005 because his wife is from South Carolina. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, now there we go. And then he says he has a dislike of Georgia. All right, we at least got to the bottom of that one. I appreciate the interaction there on that one this morning. But look, Florida does have to get DeMarcus Bowman, the transfer from Clemson at running back. That's going to be interesting with he and Emory Jones there. They do have to replace some wide receivers, but I know they've got Justin Shorter and one other guy. Again, I need to do more of a deep dive this weekend, so I think there will be some magazine purchasing today and tomorrow to prepare and spend some time this weekend. But to go back again, Tim, I'm with you 110%. It's a lot more fun to be discussing, Florida versus Georgia and who should be number one and all the little irrelevant topics that we get excited to talk about at this point in the season. I'm already over here looking at my preseason. I mean, this is just where I'm at. We didn't get any of it last year. Tomorrow night, you get the Washington football team at New England in a preseason game. You also got the Steelers and the Eagles, but the Washington football team and the Patriots on the NFL Network. I know it's preseason football. I'm not saying that I will watch 4 quarters of it again, but it'll be really nice to just have it on television. And then we've got a weekend of preseason games where if you're just kind of sitting around, you've got Buffalo at Detroit on the NFL Network, Dallas at Arizona. Saturday, you got 3 games on the NFL Network, 4 games on the NFL Network. Miami at Chicago. How about that, Jen? Denver at Minnesota, Cleveland at Jacksonville. So I don't know if Trevor Lawrence will play any this weekend. But if you wanted to check that out, maybe Trevor Lawrence taking a few snaps at 7 o'clock on the NFL Network, and then the Chargers and the Rams at 10 o'clock. So it's nice just to have some football, to be in a totally different spot with sports than we were last year at this time, and to be able to discuss a completely irrelevant coaches poll in which, I mean, how many? Let's say this percentage-wise. How many head coaches you think actually filled out this coaches poll, and how many sports information directors were in charge of filling it out and sending it in?
95% not coaches would be my guess there. Let's get out to the Love Chevy phone line. Scott would like to jump in on the conversation at 803-404-6100. Go ahead, Scott.
Hey guys, good morning. Yeah, it's a whole lot better this year, at least seeing some preseason, rankings and getting excited. I definitely am a little concerned with the season because of some of the outbreaks and everything else, but hopefully everything gets within control and we don't have a skewed schedule like we did last year and the problems we had. So fingers are crossed for that because I'm excited about this coming season. And the preseason poll, kind of caught me off guard because I'm kind of with Bill there. Oklahoma and the quarterback they're returning would definitely be my number one. I think JT Daniels was a whole lot. Probably, in my opinion, Kirby Smart did not do as well as he could have done last year had JT Daniels been in the game earlier in the season. But it would probably go Oklahoma, Georgia, Clemson to me, especially with how their quarterback performed against Notre Dame. And especially Alabama would be my number 4. But I really think by the end of the season, Bama ends up with a couple losses and a step back just because of all the players, not just all Americans, but quite possibly some of the best wide receivers that ever played college football, one of the best running backs I've ever seen at Alabama, Mac Jones, who didn't make a lot of mistakes. That's a lot to replace that I haven't seen Alabama have to replace that much talent at one time. Maybe over a couple seasons, but not one time. So I'm really interested to see how that works out. And then you got A&M sitting there with really nobody on the schedule other than Alabama. 6th game of the year. To me, that's the crash the party team because they can still. It's going to be interesting. Like I said, it's a fun thing to debate and look at. As far as Florida, with Kyle Trask not there, no way they're better than Georgia with JT Daniels. I may end up wrong on that, but in my opinion, I think A&M, Georgia for the SEC championship for the first time in a long time. You will see a different team in that SEC championship, and I really think probably both those teams could end up in the Final Four.
Appreciate the phone call, Scott. I think we all got to admit, and I heard it in there, and I'm with you. Don't get me wrong, but we just all would prefer Alabama not to have this grip on college football that it's had before, right? We would prefer, it is a massive amount to replace, and especially star power with Devontae Smith winning the Heisman last year, Najee Harris being as dynamic as he was, and then Mac Jones just stepping in and maybe being one of, if not the most productive. I think you can make the argument from a number standpoint, maybe the most productive Alabama quarterback ever. And yet, when those guys are gone, now I think everybody outside of Alabama fans like Todd probably pulling for Alabama to get knocked down a peg or two and to take some lumps and to seem like it's a human program instead of this autopilot, robotic, plug in the next superstar and go and maybe even be better than before. That's where I'm at anyway. I don't know how much unbiased analysis we're giving right now for the Alabama at the top, but I hear what Scott's saying.
But it's like that across the board. I think in sports, like the Golden State Warriors were a fun, cute little story for a year or two, and then you get tired of seeing them. LeBron, way early in his career, was a nice story, and then you see him in a NBA championship, 6 straight years or something like that. There are parts of that, and that is the fun. That is, to me, a fun part of sports where you just everybody starts to pull against somebody because you want to see something different. What he said about Texas A&M and Florida, that would be enjoyable to see those two different teams. And Florida's been there a lot. Texas A&M's never been there, but that would actually be kind of enjoyable to see somebody else break through out of the West and go to Atlanta. And so, will it happen? I don't know. This is not a debate of whether Alabama is a national title contender or not. They certainly are. Alabama, all we're doing is the fun debate of top 5 teams right now and how you would rank everybody. It's everybody's own personal opinion, so no need to get too fired up about it. And again, it's a coach's poll. But at the end of the day, it's, again, a lot more fun to debate and discuss and talk about this than some of the things we were doing last year. And, to me, Tim, though, the football issue, the bigger issue, though, is we're still dealing with those top 5 teams. And I'm sorry, Michael, I don't put Florida in there just yet, and I don't put Notre Dame in there either. But you've got those 5 teams, about Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma, and then you've got everybody else trying to get into that group. And that's why I asked you, and you said, yeah, you'd be kind of surprised if 4 out of those 5 teams did not end up comprising the college football playoff when we get to
And this feels good. Talking college football, preseason top 25 poll is out. Love to hear from you at 803-404-6100. You can call or text. It's the early game. It's 107.5 again. Morning, Les. Yeah, Jim, you're not alone there. Somebody else hit us up on the text line saying the same thing. Bill saw where Charwood was back on social media yesterday, saying they had kind of recovered from losing some of their greens. Oh, sorry, I got you on mute. There you go.
Yeah, they should be all right. I didn't see that, but that's good.
I had heard a few.
Huh?
I had heard a few weeks ago that they had some trouble out there, and they admitted as much and showed some pictures of them kind of totally resurfacing a few greens, I think.
Mm.
So yeah, your buddy Rock's been busy.
Yeah, I think they all have. I need to touch base with him. Wait, what? Yeah, Powerballs tonight. I've done the math. If you won and it's 241 million tonight for Powerball. If you took the cash value option of 175 million, and you took out the 44% taxes you would pay here in the state of South Carolina, you would win, I think, 98 million.
Would you come in tomorrow?
No, you know what? Granted.
What do you mean come in? He's sitting in his house right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like.
Would you flip the switch tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm not a person who could sit here like and retire. Like I probably would care less about my job. Like, all right, fine, fire me. I don't. What do I care?
Right.
But I couldn't sit here. I would be so bad if like I just couldn't handle like not having anything to do. That's how I would blow through $98 million. Like, all right, well, I got nothing to do. Let's fly somewhere today and like do something stupid. And 3 months from now, I'd be back in someone's office going, please let me have my job back.
Yep.
I'd also try to hide it because we're in a non-disclosure state. So I feel like if I just started quitting jobs, people are like, oh, yeah, he won it. And then you'd have people lined up at your front door going, hey, man, I really need some money. So I wouldn't quit, but I'd probably be more liberal with my days off.
Right. I've been using my mom for years. I just say, oh, she's sick. I gotta go.
Sure, Jen actually won the lottery way back.
Exactly. Yep.
I'm guessing if you won the lottery, there would be different equipment in that room you're sitting in right now.
Dude, you just have. Yes, there would. There would be a couple changes because I would now own the company.
Right. I think you would have a staff in there pressing the buttons for you.
That's right.
You'd be the executive director of the show.
Mimosas. That'd be right.
Oh, yeah. Take 6.
Don't we have to put a limit? Like, you can't have an old-timey clip that's newer than 10 years old?
No.
Then it's not an old-timey clip.
Exactly.
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It can't be within the last 10 years.
Less than 10 years.
Less than 10 years, yeah.
I think this deserves an exception. If the clip includes "oh my god" several times in the play-by-play, then
it just counts as a clip that has to be played. All right.
Speaking of old-timey, Gamecock Larry's on the phone. Wants to talk about the coaches poll.
Fantastic.
Yippee
Let's fire up
skippy.
Tim.
So I'll do a quick liner, Jen. Then I'd like to do number 4 from Mo Kaba, and then
Okay.
Gamecock Larry.
Okay. All right, guys, are up.
Just talking to Bill, saw Charwood on social media on Twitter yesterday showing some pictures of new greens out there. Looking forward to getting out there a couple of weeks from Friday. Is that what it is? Yeah, it sure is. I got to check the date there. August 27th is the date we'll be out there. That'll be 8 days before the season opener for Carolina football. Going to be raffling off a pair of tickets to that season opener against Eastern Illinois. Going to be giving away a trip to Kiowa for our winning team of the 14th anniversary 107.5 The Game golf tournament presented by Integrated Media. Again, Friday, August 27th, 10 a.m. Love to have you out there. Panera breakfast, Little Pigs lunch. Going to raise some money for Camp Cole. Going to be a great time as always. And really looking forward to seeing you out there at Charwood. Just give them a call if you would like to register. You can do that as an individual or as a foursome. Going to be a captain's choice event out there. 803-755-2000 is the number for Charwood, and Friday, August 27th, again, the date for our 14th anniversary 107.5 The Game Golf Tournament, sponsored by Integrated Media. Right now, I wanted to let you hear from linebacker Mo Kaba, defensive players speaking after practice number 5 yesterday for the Gamecocks in preseason camp. And to a man, they seem pretty excited and fired up about the new defense that
Clayton White will be in charge of this year for the Gamecocks.
I feel like it's a lot of exciting stuff going on with our defense. We're picking up on stuff real fast, and we're getting it at a level that the coaches didn't even think that we'll get it pretty much since the spring to now.
Again, linebacker Mo Kaba, excited about his new defense. And Bill, a guy like Mo Kaba should be excited about his defense right now, right? You got a new defensive coordinator in. You've struggled the last couple of years. New is better in this instance, almost no matter what at this point. Now, obviously, we'll wait and see what it looks like on the field. And just because you change a defense doesn't mean that you improve a defense. But I can certainly understand his excitement right now, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, again, the ability to just a fresh new approach, I think, and for whatever had happened over the last 22 football games, certainly a lot of guys, we talked about it, were beaten down and worn out, and I think just in a different place mentally. But so having someone else come in and maybe change up some of the schemes, because look, South Carolina just seemed outmanned the majority of the time, and it wasn't, I think it wasn't all talent. I think it was scheme or some of whatever was being coached or how it was being coached. So I can understand the excitement. Now, does that continue on through the month of October? It's such a contrast when you talk about the first 2 games as opposed to the next 2 games, East Carolina and Eastern Illinois, and then going to Georgia and Kentucky. So, what is the feeling? Are these players still excited with this defensive scheme when we get to October? I think that's the big question. I think that's what everybody wants to see right now. It's all still an unknown for us. What does it look like? I know somebody was asking about on the text line was asking about the offense, and obviously we're talking defense because yesterday the defensive players talked and we listened to them. We have no idea. It's hard for me to even know what exactly we're going to see, what kind of scheme and what kind of movement and what exactly the concepts are going to be of this offense. And I think it's the same thing with Clayton White, who's been around the Power 5 level, but has never coordinated at the Power 5 level, only at Western Kentucky. So what exactly does his scheme do? And now when you hear players say things that, might be, they're obviously excited, but might be a little over the top, like, hey, no offense is going to be able to figure out this defense, and it's complex, and we're flying around making plays, and you've got defensive linemen saying, yeah, I kind of like this. We're actually running plays to get to the quarterback and not just holding up blocks to allow the linebackers to you do what everybody loves to hear, and that's fit the run gap. But what exactly, when we hear this, your mind can kind of wander. You go, okay, what exactly does this entail? What will this defense look like when you see them against Eastern Illinois, and then the following week against East Carolina, and so forth and so on?
Theory versus reality is what we're doing right now, because when Papa Joe asked us what's the offense going to look like, we can repeat what Shane Beamer has told us and Marcus Satterfield. It was Josh Van saying that this offense is going to get you ready for the league, talking about basically huddling up after every play and more of a pro-style deal. But again, this is how theoretically it's supposed to work. Once you get games going, then you're going to go with what is working. And so a lot of times that plan has to be majorly adjusted, and we'll see how it works out. That huff you gave before you uttered the phrase run fits was fantastic. I feel like sometimes you might have that reaction to our next caller, our favorite 87-year-old caller, Gamecock Larry, waiting patiently to weigh in this morning on the Love Chevy phone lines. Happy to have him up with us. And I know you've been fired up the last couple of days, Gamecock Larry. How you feeling this morning?
Feeling okay. But I ain't got best time, but I just want to tell you, after the first game of the season, Georgia will not be in the top 5. Clemson, I hate to say this, I hate both of them. Well, I don't hate them, but I don't love them. But I'll tell you what, Clemson's going to beat them. I don't know how bad, but I'll tell you, Georgia ain't going to be in the top 5 after the first weekend. I'm going to take my time today, and I'm going to get my top 25. I got to get my tablet and my paper and find out the top 25, because you guys talk so fast, I can't write that fast. But I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to tell you who the top 5 is going to be going into the season, who my top 5 going into the season, who the top 5 is going to be after the first weekend, who the top 10 going to be. Them, but try to go all the way to the top 25. And when the season is over, Georgia or Florida might be in the top 25. Yeah, they'll be in the top 25 season then, but they won't be nowhere close to the top. That's about all I got to say.
Wait a second, Gamecock Larry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We don't need to hear you acknowledge Root Hog. That's just what he wants. Don't mess with him. What we need is a follow-up on your promise there. How about this time tomorrow is when you can release your top 5s and top 10s and top 25s, about 7:35 tomorrow morning. That sound good? That give you enough time?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But I'm going to figure it out today, and I don't know whether I can go to the top 25 tomorrow after the start of the season. 7:30, I'll call Jen. She'll put me on hold. But I got to talk to Root Hog. Root Hog called me and hung up the phone when I answered. Root Hog.
It's rude.
I don't know. I ain't got nothing to say to you, buddy. You just, why don't you call me, Root Hog, and get on the phone and stay on the phone?
Like
all
a man.
Legion of Doom. My Gamecock Larry Posse done increased to 4. We on the way. Go Gamecock. Go Gamecock. Shane Beamer and the Beamer train being the top 13 when the season's over. 14 or 15. Go Gamecock.
Top 13, 14, or 15, Bill.
Number one, given that he just picked Clemson, I'm no longer referring to him as Gamecock Larry.
Fair.
He became Clemson Larry because in no scenario, whatever, no, it doesn't happen. So
at least I'd call him Clemson Lawrence. At least let's give him a total new identity.
Lawrence. All right, yeah, I can get on board with that. Clemson Lawrence just made an appearance on the program, and 2, is there any way that the top 25 isn't 23 South Carolina names and then liver pudding and what's something else?
4-hole swamp.
There's your Gamecock Larry top 25.
Panthers get a vote for 26. Write-in vote. Didn't quite make the top 25. We got to recover from Gamecock Larry. We'll be right back after this. It's the early game on 107.5 The Game.
107.5 The Game. Game is on. Everywhere. On the air. Online. On your phone.
Nothing like a good phone call from Clemson Lawrence this morning to get him fired up, picking the Tigers to beat the Bulldogs. Disappointing to say the least. What's not disappointing is when you visit Love Chevrolet. The selection of vehicles out there right now is a great time to go. Obviously, there's a chip shortage, and that has slowed down production a little bit. So there's a lot of dealerships out there still looking for inventory at Love Chevrolet. They're no different, but what they're not doing is tacking on extra prices, causing you, the buyer, to have to pay more. Nope, at Love Chevrolet, they're still working with you. The incredible sales team, the $1,000 low price guarantee, and as I've always talked about, of course, the incredible selection that you have, whether it's a Tahoe, a Suburban, whatever you may be looking for, Love Chevrolet's got you taken care of. I-26 in Harbison between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park. You need to get out there if you're looking for a new car or truck and see exactly what they've got to offer you. And don't forget, they've got a fantastic certified pre-owned lot as well. I know college is kicking off here, high school not far away. Maybe now is the time you're looking to send that new college student off to school with a pre-owned certified vehicle. Love Chevrolet's got you taken care of. And if they're going to high school here in the next few days, maybe you want to make sure they're safe and sound in a certified pre-owned vehicle from Love Chevrolet. They've got you taken care of. Again, I-26 in Irma between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park. Love Chevrolet has been doing this for over 60 years, taking care of families just like yours and mine here in the Midlands. Come out and see exactly what they're all about if you've never been. I-26 in Harbison between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park, or on the web, lovechevy.com. Get out to Love Chevrolet and find new roads.
That's a pretty good one from Will. Who's got the better go Gamecocks, Derek Moore or Gamecock Larry?
Oh. Thank you, by the way, for telling Gamecock Larry to call in right tomorrow when it's just me hanging out by myself to get me through a segment. That was
No, I'm going to be here till 8. I'll be here
okay.
till 8.
All right, here till 8.
I'm not going to leave you hanging too much. I mean, I gotta call our voice guy, put together the promo. Gamecock Larry's top 5.
Oh yeah.
5 in the morning. Don't miss it.
Number 5.
Be awesome. We'll just come up with our have fun top 5 liver pudding.
Oh, let's see. What do we got? Have you seen this new Nebraska uniform they're going to wear against Oklahoma?
I've not.
We can bring. I guess I should make sure, but it looks like 24/7 Sports is the one that put this out. I mean, it looks legitimate.
Seeing this at Omaha.com. Oh, picture they're showing is brutal.
Right? Yeah, that's what I was saying. We got
all red jersey.
Well, it's like a bib. It looks like looks like overalls.
Is that what it's supposed to have in it? It's kind of like stripes down.
No, I mean it's like white on the top with like two.
Yeah, that's not what I'm seeing here. I think they're just showing some alternate uniforms through the years on this Omaha.com one.
I don't know. Yeah. Maybe it's not.
I haven't seen the one that you're talking about yet. I might have to scroll to it here.
I saw somebody put it on Twitter, but then I wasn't sure. But you know, Twitter sometimes is not always accurate.
Right.
No, Craig, Austin does not wakeboard, and he's only 9. We haven't hit the wakeboarding thing just yet.
Classic article that's talking about uniform reveal and not showing the uniform. Nice job, Omaha.com. Let me go on Twitter and just search.
Jim Weber just retweeted it. You follow at Jim M. Is it Weber, Weber?
I'll look about right now. Thank you, Jim M. Weaver or Weber. That's it.
He actually just retweeted it.
Just awful. Just awful. I mean, I could.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if that's true or not, but
no, that's surely not. I mean, it looks like. Yeah, it says it appears this dude is just messing with us. Yeah.
I do like that. We've reached a scary point in alternate uniforms that it's believable these could be real.
Right. All right, Jen, let's do some sound here.
Okay.
Let's do the Q&A with Jamar Brown, please. That is number uno.
Mm-hmm.
Or
straight in.
Uno. We really want to be complex.
Okay, straight in.
Straight in.
Coach White's defensive scheme and some guys that are maybe standing out to you?
No one will figure this defense out. Not one offense that we play will figure this defense out. This defense is fun to play. It's fun to be in. It's complex. It's all over the place. It's really fun to play. It's really fun to play in.
Jamar Brown, the converted linebacker to safety, answering the question from Gamecock Central's Colin Taylor after practice yesterday. And I would maybe in a typical year, let's put it this way, Bill. It does. I think the preseason optimism does have a lot to do with what you just saw the previous season. So if it was a typical year where the Gamecocks at least got to a bowl game, 7-5-ish, let's say, and there were some good young players returning and the whole deal, then I think, man, you hear that from a guy who was actually this time last year, I thought was maybe the most important guy on defense for South Carolina, because the safety play had a long way to go and it really needed to be improved. And Jamar Brown was injured a lot of the season and didn't get on the field, or when he did, he wasn't very productive. And it turned out it was another big problem last year, safety play. But if you heard this going into a typical year, feel like this would be, man, something that really pumped Gamecock fans up. That's not what you heard when you heard Jamar Brown say this yesterday, or maybe it's not the feeling you got. It was more the I'm afraid of what I'm hearing isn't going to be true, as opposed to I'm really looking forward to what I'm hearing becoming reality. Is that a fair way to put it, Bill?
Yeah, this is what Patrick and I were talking about yesterday. I think people are so scarred. This goes back to even the Kevin Harris information that we were discussing yesterday. People are so scarred, I think, and so concerned over the Muschamp era, where you just had like Brian Edwards and Will Muschamp basically telling people to get your ticket, get your popcorn, get on up to Charlotte for that North Carolina game. This offense is going to be something special. And
look, you hear from a player, and it's not that I think he's I don't think he's being dishonest. I don't think he's lying. I think he's excited about what he's participating in. But you hear that, and your natural assumption is like, oh, man, this is great. This is the defensive scheme we've been wanting for, one that nobody can ever figure out. And typically in college football, usually defensive schemes get figured out, though, right? Like even Nick Saban's defensive scheme has been figured out a time or two. Lane Kiffin did put like 600 yards on them last year and 40 some odd points, and it was kind of figured out. Alabama just had great offensive players. So, it's one of those things you hear, and I think you can get excited about to an extent, but those are big words. And certainly Georgia hanging a 45 or a 52 and a lot of yards, that one not really the one you want coming back to bite you.
I don't know if we ever heard that, though, in the Will Muschamp era about just the system or the defense in general. So it's going to be wildly interesting to see how this defense plays. I mean, the offense as well, both sides of the ball, Bill. There are so many question marks and so many spots where potentially somebody hit us up earlier and was asking us about which position coach has their work cut out for them the most. And we haven't responded to it because, I mean, you can make a case for so many different guys, Bill, because just the returning production just isn't there for a lot of different positions. I mean, we talked about the top 5 positions of concern, and I think you, me, and Patrick, we all agreed that quarterback is at the top of the list. But I mean, you can certainly go to wide receivers next, linebacker next, defensive backs next. Any of those positions right now, you got to see vast improvement. And when you lose 8 games in your last 2 years each, obviously things need to improve in a big way, and not just at one position and not just at 2 positions, but all over the place. And that's where Carolina seems to be as we sit here towards the beginning of preseason camp, and today an off day, by the way, and they'll get right back at it tomorrow.
A lot of positions, and then that's a good point. Certainly, I think there are some players there that can perform under the right scheme. Again, you got 2 guys who are 5-star players, and Zach Pickens and Jordan Burch could have gone anywhere in the country. Those are talented players. They need to be coached up. That's Jimmy Lindsey's job and Mike Peterson's job to coach them up. JJ Ngbare is looking like, at least preseason wise, a top 60 draft pick. So there's 3 good players you talk about on that defense that we're already discussing and we're interested to see. Certainly the secondary has got a lot of questions. The linebacking group is very unproven at this point in time. So there are a lot of questions, and to see what Clayton White and then those assistant coaches on the defensive side can do to maximize the talented players that you have. And again, I'll list Birch and Pickens and Ngbare amongst that group. Can you get more out of Rick Sandage? Can you continue to develop Tonka Hemingway on the interior? What happens with Jabari Ellis? And kind of go down the list of guys there. Aaron Sterling is another guy that's back for, I think, a 15th year of college football. It all comes together to make, what does this scheme look like when they get out there and really start going after it?
Great comments rolling in on Facebook Live. Travis says, unless old Jolie Dunn is walking in that locker room, I'll wait and see if this scheme is that hard to figure out. Talking about the old Fire Ants defensive coordinator back in the 80s for the Gamecocks that blitzed all the time and played a really exciting brand of defense for sure. On the Cool Care Heating and Air text line, 3 texts in, and they vary, and I think they really sum up where Gamecock fans are, the different camps. Anonymous texter, it sounds like the players are just having fun again. Matt says, complex defense makes me nervous. I assumed we would take a keep it simple approach, hope the players can catch on and play fast. And then Jacob says, I think that comment by Jamar Brown may be more of a hit on how bland Muschamp's defense was. I mean, look at when we played Ole Miss. They knew that what we were going to do before we did it. So I think that Clayton White's defense is going to be good, and it's certainly got to be more complex than our last one. I don't know about that. Maybe in reality, because we saw the run fits and the defensive playbook pop up on social media a while back, and it seemed awfully complex from the Will Muschamp standpoint. We'll continue to discuss. Need to take a quick break right now. It's the early game. It's 107.5 the game. Oh, football season. I love it.
Yeah, makes it a lot easier.
All right, Craig's going Marcellus Dial as his player of the year on defense. He has been getting some pretty solid feedback from the players. Tonka Hemingway, interesting. I got to get a little closer to the season, hear a little bit more until going with a breakout player of the year. Good morning, Hope. I heard the YouTube subscribers were fewer than 800, something like that.
Yeah, we're right at 800, I think.
So if you guys know anyone who can subscribe to the YouTube page, please help us out with that. Oh, Trey, no, that's just putting the punter as the defensive player of the year. Just rude.
Oh my goodness.
Good shot by a texter that already coming back. Good one.
What?
Last text was pretty good. We'll read that coming back. Thank you, Hope, for the update. I think every coaching staff has said that. Travis, I wouldn't. It's not just the last staff. Every coaching staff that watches their players not do what they're told. But
All right. Somebody posted a Travis Trill. It's a great day to be alive. That song is cemented in my head right now. Jen, what do you think we would prefer? A 4-day, if you had to choose one, a 4-day work week. I saw this debated on like one of the Twitter things yesterday. 4-day work week or doing away with daylight savings time. Because I think people like having the daylight longer. This was kind of debate. I'd have to go back and pull the little article. I can't remember. I was bored yesterday, but it was something to do with people would probably if you had to do full time day. Like the clock's never changing.
I would prefer the clock's not change. I got used to that in Indianapolis.
As opposed to the 4-day work week.
I'm still not sure about that. I think 4-day work week is kind of a nice option.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
I want both.
Yep. Well, point of you had to choose one or the other.
4-day work week.
I'm kind of with you on that. It would be nice if Thursday became of course, Thursday really is kind of the new Friday.
Patrick's working this afternoon, tomorrow afternoon from noon to 4, by the way, Troy. If you want to give him some grief, noon to 4. Today and tomorrow is the time to do it. He's going to be keeping Jay and Pearson straight.
So what, 2 weeks? 2 weeks from this weekend, we get the opening weekend of college football. Just having some college football would be nice.
All right, we're heading in. And we're only going to have about a minute. All right, goes Rip.
So Alabama dominating with 63 out of 65 votes in the coaches' preseason poll that came out yesterday. Also, SEC football news in that state. It was a 2-year defensive tackle starter who's just no longer with the Auburn program. No reason really given by the new head coach there, and Brian Harsin, why Tone Truesdale no longer with the team, and it was just as of right now, he's not part of the football team, and that's where we stand kind of deal. Another reminder, Bill, that the relatively quiet and not much news out of Gamecock first handful of practices is always a good thing when you're a college football program this time of year.
That's what you would prefer. They've made it so far through the summer and a few practices. Hopefully it continues on.
You're an Auburn fan right now. I don't know how you're feeling with the regime change, with Brian Harsey coming over from Boise State, the recruiting rankings not where you want them to be. Big Cat Bryant's over at UCF. Now another guy off the team. Hour 3 coming up here on the early game.
Get some more coffee. And, Penn State and Auburn, I think, is week 2.
Nice.
Is that right? Let me look and just confirm that. But I think that is in Happy Valley.
I'll let you keep talking about that real quick. Going to go check on the crew.
Sounds
Go
good.
check on the crew. Yep, I'm going to have to go get some coffee here in a minute. One final cup for the day. Let's look here and see. I think it's week 2. Might be week 3. It's either week 2 or week 3, Auburn and Penn State. Oh, week 3, September 18th. So Auburn plays Akron and Alabama State to open the season. And then goes to Penn State and then has Georgia State before LSU on October 2nd. Oof. Auburn will roll out of the gate 3-1. Doesn't matter who they got. Tank Bigsby can win that one. I wonder, let's all do this. Let's take a glance. Let's type into the old search bar Northwestern ball news. Let's see if we got anything here. The Daily Northwestern. How about that? Jen, are we familiar with the Daily Northwestern?
I am not.
So let's see. This is from yesterday, I think, because it was 6 hours ago. It was published. This article was published yesterday. And it says, less than a month from season opener, Northwestern's quarterback competition will be done when it's done. All right. So Pat Fitzgerald said, it'll be done when it's done. I wish it was done in spring ball, but nobody really separated themselves. And I'm not saying that as a negative. The whole group has improved and gotten better. We'll see how things unfold.
Okay.
Sounds like Hunter Johnson might have the edge just a tad. Just reading this article, it says wait a minute, was it? Oh, Marty. Marty's the other guy. Andrew Marty, Hunter Johnson, and Ryan Helinski. Johnson and Marty have an extra season over Helinski. But the offensive coordinator said the sophomore has grown more comfortable with the offense since his arrival in the spring. But in terms of assets he brings to the competition, Marty emphasized the trust his teammates have in him. So, yeah. Do I know?
Breaking down the Northwestern quarterback battle right now?
Yeah, just taking a quick glance over Northwestern, the Daily Northwestern, with a very in-depth article, as the Daily Northwestern tends to do.
Sure.
Maybe I'll put that down a tad. There we go.
Lake is looking good.
Did Helinski's parents move to Illinois with him, or they stay here?
Good question.
I know what my choice would have been, but
Well, you made your choice? I haven't seen anything about them moving. I would assume they stayed here, but
I would think so.
You don't hear a lot of migration from Lake Murray to Chicago.
No. Not that Evanston isn't a lovely little town. However,
It's a nice place to visit.
it is.
And if you enjoy bundling up, I guess a nice place to live.
Right. Yep.
The defensive back from Assumption College, right there in the Boston area or in Massachusetts, was talking yesterday, Carlin Splatel, about how his teammates were saying that 55 degrees was cold. And he's still getting used to the heat.
Yeah, that too would be an adjustment.
For sure. Yeah, and I saw Yuva's rap of the defensive players talking, and he made sure to get his alma mater in there. I didn't realize that. I guess Deontay Harris from the Saints went there. They had another NFL guy, I think, before then that Patel said prepared him for the adjustment to SEC wide receivers.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And I see Cole Kubelik. He's doing the Birmingham morning show now with McElroy over in Birmingham at Jocks. He has his top 5 breakout players in the SEC, and a Gamecock made it.
Did not see that.
You want to guess who it was?
Breakout player?
I think he might have said offensive players. It's on the offensive side of the ball. I'll give you a little bit of narrowing down.
Did he go with? I mean, Nick Muse, but Muse is not really a breakout player, is it?
Right. No.
Did he go Jaheim Bell? That seems like the most logical.
No, I probably would have guessed that one as well.
Marshawn Lloyd?
Nope.
Luke Doty? Is it an offensive lineman?
Nope.
I'm out. Who you got?
You guys want to keep guessing?
I mean, we can go through the entire offensive roster.
We'll
We're the intro.
Live chat, keep guessing. See if anybody hits it. If you actually know it, don't throw it out there. Matt guessed Marshawn Lloyd as well. No. Guess Matt. I think this is maybe a good sign for the Gamecocks, or maybe the opposite in that nobody knows anything.
Yeah, nobody knows anything about his offense.
Matt got it there.
Oh, finally? E.J. Jenkins?
Yep, Travis, you got it too. St. Francis, too. He's the big toe. Come on, Sergeant Holka.
That's right.
I think the perfect soundtrack rolling into hour number 3 this morning on an August Wednesday where college football, I don't like we used to talk about it, has been what we're talking about this morning. Preseason coaches polls and first few games of the season, who's overrated, who's underrated, how much can we take, how much stock can we actually put in what Gamecock players are saying right now, a handful of practices in with a new coaching staff and the whole deal. It feels good, though. That's just what I'm trying to say in a very long-winded way. It feels good talking college football this morning.
Yeah, no, it's great to discuss. It to me, having done radio now for roughly 11, I guess 12 years, it gets a little agitating at this point because you get so excited to discuss it, you want to see it. And I think I was telling you off air, and I feel like I got an eyebrow roll or an eye roll from you, or something. You kind
well, if I could do an eyebrow roll,
yeah, it was a combination. You're quite talented. You developed a lot of skill in the last year and a half sitting at home and not dealing with me face to face. But I said something to the extent like, hey, 2 weeks from this Saturday, kind of the opening of college football season. Hawaii, UCLA, and Nebraska, Illinois. All right, you're kind of like, yeah, all right. So, but I'm ready to see something. I mean, I'm working myself into a kind of a Saturday coming up where you'll have 4 NFL games on the NFL Network. Will have 4 games that you can just, again, I'm not going to sit here and tell anybody that I'm watching from 1 p.m. to 1 a.m. watching every snap. But I'm guessing maybe we'll see some of Justin Fields in the 1 o'clock game. Miami at Chicago this weekend. The 4 o'clock game is Denver at Minnesota. The 7 o'clock game, maybe a little Clowney against Trevor Lawrence there. Maybe we get a couple snaps of Trevor Lawrence for Jacksonville. And then the 10 o'clock game is the Chargers and the Rams. So I think at least we get some football this weekend. And again, that's what makes it kind of feel a little bit more normal as we roll toward the start of the season. And I think the other thing, Tim, and I wonder about this, I kind of throw it out there here in hour number 3. There's so many question marks about this football team, about South Carolina. And you hear so many things. We're trying to figure out what Marcus Satterfield's offense will look like. We're trying to figure out how complex this defense will be. Eastern Illinois is not a good football team. Okay? South Carolina should honestly be able to pick their score and win this game. Eastern Illinois is not good right now. They were 1-11. Hold on.
Keep going.
They were 1-11 in 2019. They were 1-5 last year. South Carolina should be able to go out and win this game easily. Does that make you – do you like that better for the opening of the Shane Beamer era as opposed to – and I won't even say like an NC State or a North Carolina game, but let's just say a more difficult, an East Carolina, someone who you might be a little bit more fearful of. People are already worried about East Carolina in week 2. Do you like this, that it's such an easy opponent? I say this, and I realize Labor Day, that could really come back to bite me in the rear end if something happens. But do you like that it's an opponent who over the last 2 years has won a combined 2 games at the FCS level? That the last time that they played an FBS team, they got beaten 52-0 by Indiana the second week of 2019. Again, this is a game that South Carolina should be able to go out and sleepwalk through and win to some. But do you like that it's such an easy game to open up, or would you like to see them challenged a little bit more?
I'll go further than what you're asking. You're just talking about the opener. I'll say that outside of October 2nd, in week 5, I think this is the absolute ideal schedule for Shane Beamer and company. Because right now, this is exactly what this team and program needs to have a struggling FCS program at home, at night, in game number 1. Gamecock fans need to feel good about Gamecock football. And if you can't feel good against Eastern Illinois, I don't know who you could put on that schedule that would be better right now. You mentioned, 1-5 in an FCS spring schedule last year, and then 1-11 the last time they played a full season. Eastern Illinois is ideal for this program because before you can really start getting it rolling in a positive way, you got to start believing first that you could even get it going in that direction. And I think Eastern Illinois will do that. And then to progress from that to a step up. How much a step up is East Carolina right now? I think probably a significant step up from Eastern Illinois. But compared to where they'll go for week number 3, East Carolina does not compare to Georgia right now. But doing it on the road in a program that has some success, some history, I think some respect from Gamecock fans to a certain degree, East Carolina does. East Carolina has come into Williams-Brice and won before. So it's not like they are a program where you just automatically say, I think there's legit concern for week number 2. But there will also be some legit good feeling if Carolina goes to Greenville, North Carolina, and comes up with a win, and it's 2-0 going to Athens in week 3, where Shane Beamer gets a complete pass right now, certainly from the national perspective. And I get it if you're a Gamecock fan listening right now and say, stop saying that South Carolina is automatically going to lose against Georgia. Didn't you see what happened the last time they went to Athens and the whole deal? Yeah, I get all of that. But again, set up perfectly. It's that, and then you have what Teddy D hit us up with earlier in really one of, if not the pivotal game of the season with Kentucky in week number 4. But you got it at home, and you got it after you've had all these different levels of tests, right? You got the easy one that you're supposed to ace, and if you don't, you got big trouble in Eastern Illinois. You got, I would call it a medium test right now on the road against an East Carolina program that has been down the last few years, but seems to be improving. Certainly could sneak up on you if you don't give them the proper preparation or proper respect. And then you got the ultimate test. Patrick's predicting Georgia win a national championship this year. Where's Georgia in this preseason poll? Number 4, number 5, somewhere in there?
I believe they're number 5. I've got to go back and look. I'm going down a rabbit hole just of Eastern Illinois. By the way, we said 1-5 last year. They were 1-11 in 2019. They were 3-8 in 2018. So South Carolina's won 6 games over the last 2 years. Eastern Illinois has won 5 games right now over the last 3.
And again, didn't quite play a full schedule last year. Only played 6 games in the spring instead of the 10 that Carolina got, so a little skewed. But I think certainly worth mentioning. Georgia's number 5 in the preseason poll. So and then that week 4 game, you've already had all of those different tests, and you welcome in Kentucky, a program that South Carolina fans got used to beating consistently and being ahead of on the SEC totem pole, and they're just not anymore. And the game to end the season last year was not very competitive. Gamecock fans feel like their program is much more competitive with Kentucky, and I get it. If you still expect to beat the Wildcats and the whole thing, and if Shane Beamer can win that game, Bill, that's where I think the rest of the season is kind of icing on the cake, and you can build a ton of goodwill.
Oh, don't do that again.
Win or 2 kind of thing.
Yeah, don't do that again. I mean, that was the Georgia game a few years ago. No, it's not. There's more to it. Kentucky's ahead of Tennessee, and that to me is another game you circle, even though it's on the road. As you go through this schedule, and you're right. I guess I haven't really thought about the way you laid out the first 3 games with the gradual step up in competition. Because you're right, East Carolina. I think South Carolina should win that game. They should be favored, I would assume, in Greenville. I would assume it's not going to be by more than a touchdown. But I would assume that they will be favored in that game. And you're exactly right. South Carolina, if they go up there and they're not prepared, or if they blow out Eastern Illinois and they start reading press clippings or thinking too highly of themselves and they start looking ahead to Georgia, East Carolina can go up there and trip you up. Mike Houston is a very good football coach, but South Carolina should still win that football game. With that being said, if you go up there and Luke Doty's struggling and can't throw a forward pass, and this complex defense can't figure out how to stop the run, a lot of things can change very, very quickly. And you get up there, that should be a really fun environment for college football that day, a smaller stadium, a non-Power 5 crowd that's going to be really fired up to get an SEC program into their building to try and get a win to brag about. So there's a lot of things that kind of go with that second game. But you're right, it's a step up in competition. And then you go to the big one in Georgia, and you hope South Carolina's playing with confidence. You hope that they can go in and be competitive, and who knows, maybe make it a 4th quarter game. We'll worry about that game when it comes. But I think this first one, you go back and it is probably I don't want to say easiest opponent. I don't know if easiest is the word I want to use, but definitely since the Charleston Southern game, in which South Carolina, Ryan Helinski made his debut, and South Carolina was able to put up a bunch of points and be very dominant and at least bounce back a tad from the North Carolina debacle. And again, they were able to take some of that momentum and at least put it toward what I thought was a competitive showing for a half against Alabama. They weren't manhandled in the first half, and in the second half, Alabama took over, was just a better team.
And to me, I mentioned that the ideal schedule is there for Carolina, except for week number 5. That's when you play Troy at home after playing that Kentucky game. If I had to make up the ideal schedule for Shane Beamer in year number 1, I'd throw Troy back towards the end of the season, have it separate the Auburn and Clemson game at least, or maybe a Texas A&M and Florida back-to-back that they have on the schedule. It seems like it was just the way that Steve Spurrier ended up getting the schedule done, and the way that most SEC schools do it, in that 11th game before the season finale, that you have a smaller team come into your So to me, that October 2nd game where Troy sits right now after that Kentucky game, in between Kentucky and Tennessee, Gamecock fans are all about beating Kentucky and Tennessee and assuming you're going to beat Troy. To me, there's not much to gain with having that game where it is. Troy can be a program that can sneak up on them as well.
Yeah, I'll disagree with you on that. I again do more of a deep dive into Troy and just kind of go through it. But no, I kind of disagree with you on that. The gap between South Carolina and Clemson is so large that I think even having, I go back. I think 1 year it was Middle Tennessee State. I think it was Wofford 1 year. I think it was maybe Furman another. I'm trying to think of the games that South Carolina had prior to playing Clemson. I think 1 year when Coastal was an FCS program and Joe Moglia brought them in, and he openly said, "Hey, look, this game means nothing to us. We're trying to prepare for the FCS playoff," and he pulled all the starters at halftime. And South Carolina ended up scoring 70 against like the third stringers for Coastal Carolina. The gap is so huge between South Carolina and Clemson. I don't think having that game right there matters that much. Having Troy, again, a game that South Carolina should win. All right. I mean, we talk all about 2-8 and 4-8 and all that, but South Carolina should talent-wise be better than Troy. Having that game there off of what will probably be a huge emotional game, win or lose against Kentucky, giving yourself a week to kind of regroup before you go to Tennessee, which again is, to me, beating Clemson would be huge. Well, but you're going to be a 3-4 touchdown underdog likely to Clemson. A Tennessee game, I think for rebuilding this program is just as important, because we've seen the big upsets, right? We've seen South Carolina beat Georgia and it lead to nothing. We've seen South Carolina beat Auburn and it lead to nothing. Beating Tennessee and at least reestablishing that a little bit, I think goes a long way, because even if you beat Clemson, if you pull some kind of massive upset, Clemson's still massively better right now. It's going to take a few years to catch Clemson. Beating Tennessee right now, you're able to go on the recruiting trail and say, hey, look, we were even with that program, but we got them this year. We can continue to pull away from them. So I think having the Troy game where it's at allows you kind of that letdown moment after Kentucky, win or lose, to kind of refocus, win that game, and then refocus for Tennessee.
Yeah, the problem is you're just talking about the Clemson game isolated. You're not talking about the last 5-game stretch in its entirety there. At Texas A&M October 23rd, then you get the bye week before Florida comes to town, at Missouri, Auburn and Williams-Brice, and then Clemson. That 5-game stretch is pretty brutal, and one that I think if you had your pick, you would be able to break that up with a
True, but let's also say this. What you just pointed out goes back. I think the previous segment, the last hour, where you talked about Tyrone Truesdale, we don't know what Auburn is right now. We really have zero clue what Auburn is about to be. Auburn in name is a big time opponent. I don't know if Auburn is going to be as good as their name recognition is this year. That team might struggle. They're going to open they're going to open at least 3-1. I was looking at their schedule. They play Akron, Alabama State. They go on the road to Penn State in week 3, and then come back home and get Georgia State. They get Sean Elliott, Georgia State. And then October 2nd, they get LSU. And that starts their run of SEC West schools, also throw Georgia in there. So by the time Auburn comes to Columbia, that program might be sitting at 5-5.
It's true. I mean, the stretch they have at LSU, Georgia, at Arkansas, Ole Miss, and at Texas A&M, that's going to be tough for sure. They do get Mississippi State at home the week before. They'll play Carolina on November 20th. Breaking down schedules, talking about season impressions from defensive players that we got yesterday after the 5th Gamecock practice. I love where we're at right now in the preseason and the discussion around college football with that coaches poll coming out yesterday, where Alabama dominated with 63 of the 65 number 1 votes. We'll continue this college football discussion and love to see the text messages rolling in. Feel free to call us at that same number, 803-404-6100. It's the early game. It's 107.5 The Game.
Oh man, it is. It is exciting that college football is just ahead of us, and that we're going to really get deep into that here in the coming weeks. But you still got a few weeks to focus on other things. One of them being maybe potentially saving money on your monthly mortgage payment. Now's the time to refinance. Give the mortgage guru, Jacob Crowder, a call today. The phone call can take 5-10 minutes at most. All you want to do is give some information and just see what you're pre-approved for. See what that interest rate may be. If you've got equity in your home, what type of money you could get back in your pocket to pay off some bills right now to set yourself up for the end of the year. It's never too early to start thinking about Christmas and a little Christmas shopping. So there's so many things you can do with that extra money, and it might just be a 5 or 10 minute phone call away. 803-719-1005. That's the phone number for one Jacob Crowder, the mortgage guru with First Palmetto Bank. He and Brian Kovar teaming up right now to help families save $200, $300, $400 a month on their monthly mortgage payment. Just again, with a quick phone call to start the process. 803-719-1005. That email, if you want to email Jacob, the letter J, Crowder, CROWDER at firstpalmetto.com. Again, I stress this because sometimes you think, oh man, I got to go through a day of phone calls. I got to send in a whole bunch of paperwork. No, it's one, maybe 5 or 10 minute phone call to start the process, to see what the interest rates could be, to see if you might be pre-approved, and then you can move on from there. If it's a great deal, you can get it done, save a lot of money, and be ready to go for football season. 803-719-1005. He's the mortgage guru, Jacob Crowder with First Palmetto Bank. Let's see here. Last year, Troy went 5-6. Although one of those losses was to Coastal Carolina. They got blown out by Appalachian State.
Well, that was when Neil Brown was there, right, Troy? I mean, it's not quite the same program that he's.
It's true. They've got a new coach. Who is the Troy coach this year? That's a good point.
No one's saying right now that South Carolina can overlook anybody.
Oh, wait. They didn't have Chip Lindsey is the coach there now. I think this is his second year. Is that right?
Maybe third. I think last year was year number 2 for Neil Brown at West Virginia, right?
Was it year 2? Or you might be right.
I don't know about need to. I think certainly want to, Craig. And, I mean, if you're going to call it a banner year, yeah, you need to.
Yeah, I need to go to the store today and get me some magazines. That's still a thing with all the internet, with everything on the internet, everything. It's still a thing to go buy college football magazines, right? Like that's the
sure. That's
the
one thing the internet's not good at.
Yep.
You know, the more in-depth magazine like that has all that information right there. It's so easy to flip to. The media guide, the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I think it's just also part of like a tradition, like especially for people like us. Like, I mean, it's just.
I mean, the newspaper was a tradition, but that's gone. You can replicate the newspaper.
No, but I meant like I think isn't it like you get your magazine, you go lay on the beach. Like newspaper is over in a day. Like you can put the Streets and Smiths or whatever in the restroom, and every time you visit the restroom, you're like, today's newspaper, you're not reading it tomorrow.
Right.
Correct.
Just because there's so much information in there, and it's relatively evergreen, even a few weeks into the season.
Now, Tommy Moody, he keeps newspapers.
Yeah.
He does have quite the collection.
That's a good point, Justin. I agree. Write it down before the season and during the season when you're on the emotional roller coaster. Look back.
It's actually a solid.
Try to remind yourself. Now, the problem with that, Justin, is I see a lot of people writing down 8-4 or 7-5 at the lowest. Like, whew, that's a high expectation.
You know what? We might have to do that. I might have to break out the notebook over there one morning, and the people that
thinking-
we know as our regulars, and we can look at
Right.
the text line and say, we're documenting this. Here's what you say.
Put it up behind me. Right here. Where can we put that thing? Right here. Season expectation list.
Yeah. I mean, I'll put it, we can put it in the notebook, and we just take I don't want to say we take the reasonable ones, but we take the regulars that we know will continue to.
Right. That is the key word. I think most fans actually will be reasonable. All right, RL's in. Good to see. Just two numbers that add up to 12. That's what we're looking for.
So maybe that's what we do next Friday, because you're out this Friday. I've got Heath's show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then that Friday would be a good one, 2 weeks. Because we'll have heard next Thursday, you'll have heard from Clayton White and Marcus Satterfield.
Is it on Thursday or are they talking Wednesday?
No, they talk next Thursday, and then the following week they talk Wednesday, because Beamer does his first Carolina Calls, whatever it would be, the 26th, I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was kind of going through the email here a little while ago to kind of look. I'm actually a little surprised. I guess I just didn't realize this. I thought there would be more media with some of the other coaches like Justin Stepp or Torian Gray or stuff like that. I'm a little surprised there's not more of that.
That's all right.
No, we can't, Alan. It's all part of the process. This preparation, all part of the process. Glad the new gig's going well. Jen, here's what I would like to do. I would like to do number 3 coming back straight in.
Okay.
And then I would like you to play number 1, 2, and 4 together. I'll set it up though. 1, 2, and 4 all together. 3 coming in right now.
Okay.
Thank
May
you.
not be super fluid, but we'll do it.
That's our show.
And going from winter, like I look like chubby, and I feel like I improved. My body improved a whole lot. Like I slimmed down a lot. Even when I went home for the break, like my parents used to say, I'm fat. And then when I got back, they was like, oh, okay, I see a difference. Coach Day and the staff has most definitely been making my body a whole lot better.
An energetic defensive lineman headed into his 4th season, Rick Sandage, speaking after practice number 5 yesterday for Gamecock football. And Bill, we talked about it. We touched on it in the show this morning. You've brought him up as an example specifically, I think, in years past in shows past and in years past of a guy that was really highly recruited and you expected more out of. I think everybody expected more out of Rick Sandage than what he's produced in his 3 seasons on campus. He's got 30 total tackles, but 19 of them happened in year number 1. He's only had 6 and 5 in his last couple of seasons. And then I understand if you don't want to completely evaluate him on those numbers and say that Will Muschamp's and Travaris Robinson's defense, well, the defensive linemen, especially in the interior, were supposed to occupy blocks and the whole thing. But Carolina's defensive line still hasn't been up to par for the most part in the last couple of years, especially stopping the run. So it's not like he has been counted on to be that run stopper or just plug up the middle, and then other guys have been able to have a bunch of success behind him making plays and stopping the run. So a good representation, I think, Rick Sandage is, as we sit here this morning, of a guy who came in with high expectations and has not met those yet. Can the new coaching staff get his potential out of him? Sandage certainly optimistic about that possibility, speaking yesterday, saying that he's expecting the high school Rick this year and a big time year and kind of resurgence, or maybe if you want to talk about it just from the college perspective, just making a name for himself in college football, Bill.
Yeah, and there are players. I do think that there are certain positions where there is talent. Defensive line is one of those. when you go back and you kind of follow the recruiting rankings and the potential of those guys. But it's a matter of want to, but it's also a matter of being coached up. Rick Sandage has had. I really like John Scott Jr., who left after 1 year as defensive line coach to go to Penn State. I thought that was a loss for South Carolina at the time, and certainly last year was different from a preparation standpoint, not having spring practice with Tracy Rocker all the way through the summer and everything. But I don't know if Tracy Rocker's philosophies and method of coaching necessarily connected with some of these players, because, again, stopping the run against pretty much anybody was certainly an issue. But Rick Sandage is a guy who has potential. Jimmy Lindsey's got to get it out of him. You've got to find a way to develop that player and turn him at least into close to being the type of recruit that he was expected to be. And for Sandage, he's also got to come with the work. You hear him kind of talking about reshaping his body. It sounds like he's had a good offseason. We'll find out. It's all going to come to light here in the next few weeks. And that's why, Tim, as we go back and talk about the schedule, you make a great point when you talk about the first month of the season. The level of opponents that you play in the first 4 games, all different levels, will give us a good idea of how this coaching staff, I think, is developing players, given that they'll have had a full spring with them, an off season for Luke Day to work with them, and then a full preseason camp to be able to continue to develop those abilities.
And even when you say full, I think Shane Beamer's touched on this publicly, how the NCAA has allowed coaching staffs in 2021 more contact with their players than they ever have before. So should have, I mean, everyone's on the same playing field. It's a level playing field for everyone. But I think maybe the overall product of college football should be better earlier in the season this year because of all the time allowed between coaches and players. And it is a big difference from last year for sure in a lot of different ways that we've touched on earlier on in the show as well. Right now, I wanted to let you hear more of what Gamecock defensive players had to say yesterday, especially just about the change from Will Muschamp and Travaris Robinson to Clayton White and the new defense that they're running. So you're going to hear right now from Jamar Brown first, Rick Sandage second, and then linebacker Mo Kaba third about this new defense that they're preparing and just repping consistently through 5 practices at Gamecock preseason camp.
You guys just finished practice number 5. What are some early returns on your impressions of Coach White's defensive scheme and some guys that are maybe standing out to you?
No one will figure this defense out. Not one offense that we play will figure this defense out. This defense is fun to play. It's fun to be in. It's complex. It's all over the place. It's really fun to play. It's really fun to play in.
Coming off the summer with the strength program, how do you feel noticeably stronger, like quicker? Like,
yeah, I looked at my body pics, and going from winter, like I look like chubby. And I feel like I improved, my body improved a whole lot. Like I slimmed down a lot. Even when I went home for the break, like my parents used to say, I'm fat. And then when I got back, they was like, oh, okay, I see a difference. So Coach Day and the staff has most definitely been making my body a whole lot better.
I feel like it's a lot of exciting stuff going on with our defense. We're picking up on stuff real fast, and we're getting it at a level that the coaches didn't even think that we'll get it pretty much since the spring to now.
Mo Kaba, the linebacker, the last voice you heard there, it was Rick Sandage, the defensive lineman before that, and Jamar Brown, the linebacker who has now moved full-time to safety before then. And the questions coming from Colin Taylor at Gamecock Central to Jamar Brown, and then it was the Big Spurs' Hale McGranahan asking Rick Sandage there about the offseason conditioning program. Sandage also added that he feels like this defense is different and will be special as well. So, Bill, the question, I guess, from the Gamecock fan perspective is how much credence, how much stock do you put into what you're hearing right now from these Gamecock defensive players who are completely tunnel visioned in, as they should be, into what Clayton White is teaching them in their meetings and practice time right now and getting a new defense down?
I put none. I'm jaded. I'm beaten up. I will say it's not even a Will Muschamp thing. There was a when I had to go to a bunch of press conferences, and I'd go every week, and Steve Spurrier would say, "Yeah, Chris Culliver, wide receiver, really fast. We got to find a way to get him the ball." And then every week you never see Chris Culliver get the ball. And then they finally moved into defense. That was Steve Spurrier talking to. So, it's talk. It's preseason talk. It's fun. I think it makes you excited. I don't think you get down on it. You don't call them liars. You don't say, "Oh, this is the same thing I hear every year." You pick and choose what you want to believe. But I think you have to be careful in like getting overly excited about what Jamar Brown says and going to the first game and the first time that the defense gives up a first down, be like, "Oh, that guy didn't know what he was talking about. They just gave up a first down." Nobody was supposed to figure out this defense, and if nobody figured out, you can't get a first down. I don't put a lot of stock into what's said. Again, it's fun to debate. It's fun to talk about. It's a lot more fun to discuss than what we were doing last year and to analyze and to look ahead. I think I was looking, you can go to the Big Spur, you can go to Gamecock Central, and you can see Wes Mitchell, you can see J.C. Sherbert, you can see their practice thoughts, their own opinions, what they're seeing with their eyes. And I think that's just as good to be able to look at and to break down and to listen and use it for discussion points when you're having lunch with your buddies right now. But I don't know how much I actually put into what players are saying. I think it's a thing where I want to see it happen against Eastern Illinois, who it should happen against. I want to see it carried over to East Carolina. And then over time, I think you develop that ability to recognize and read what's being said in the preseason and how it'll fit with what actually happens in the regular season.
I think putting absolutely zero stock, none, into what they're saying right now is farther than where I'm at, Bill. I understand where you're at, and being certainly jaded and your perspective being skewed from the Will Muschamp era, I get that. Where I put the stock in is not necessarily the words, but how these guys delivered what they were talking about the offense. You see them kind of light up, or at least I did. I saw them light up when asked about this on the podium, and I'm hearing too, certainly confidence, and to have instilled excitement and confidence in a group that's lost 8 games each of the last 2 years, I think is a very important thing for this new coaching staff to have done. But having said that, you got to do that with your team every single year. I mean, that's especially at the beginning of preseason practice, a handful of practices in, you got to have that. Otherwise, you're not going to make it all the way through preseason camp. It's a long grind, and it does have ebbs and flows. And you're supposed to be excited and build your guys up at some point. And then maybe the next 10 practices or so, you go the other way. And it's more of the breaking down and making sure that you're getting your message across and your expectation across. And you might have to do that in a very forthright and frank manner as a coach. And then the last several practices before the first game, you get back on the building them back up and instilling the confidence and the whole kind of thing. Maybe this is just the natural evolution of preseason camp right now from what we're hearing from Gamecock players and what Gamecock coaches are doing. But my question is, I think I would put more stock into what I'm hearing right now if we had seen a more competitive defense last year. But we saw a defense that just didn't compete in several games against not just high-level opponents. We got to remember what LSU was last year. They weren't very good. It's just what LSU was. And I get it that maybe the Gamecocks caught them at the time where they needed a win the most, but they also caught a freshman quarterback who hadn't started before and the whole thing. And just not to lose that game is one thing, but just not to have competed in that game is the problem. To watch Texas A&M roll in and just absolutely roll over you, to see a Missouri team beat you when they had a bunch of guys out and came to Columbia where they were, and then to watch the Kentucky game down the stretch as well. That's where I don't know what to expect from this group because of what we've seen. I don't know if just getting the best out of these players is going to be enough to win football games this year in the SEC because of that huge gap that we saw most recently for Carolina football. You know where I'm coming from here?
No, I think you're 100% right. It's hard to, when you see South Carolina, and I guess, I feel like a lot of people, everything changed with the LSU game because people were so grizzled, and rightfully so, when you go play a freshman quarterback in TJ Finley and you feel like you've got momentum on your side. You feel like that you've got a chance to go down there. LSU was reeling at the time. They're still incredibly talented. Let's be clear about that. They were reeling. It looked like a team who was kind of lost, and now they were putting out a freshman quarterback in TJ Finley, and you thought, all right, here's our opportunity to maybe score a second big victory, and it wasn't really even competitive. TJ Finley just chewed up South Carolina. I was going back, I think it was 16 of 21 that night is what he was for. LSU puts up 52 points. They were up at halftime 31-10. They just annihilated South Carolina, 17 of 21 that night for 265 yards. And you were supposed to have a defensive guru as a head coach, and yet you did nothing, absolutely nothing to stop a freshman quarterback or make him concerned. And then things really kind of started to go downhill from there. You had the Texas A&M game. You had the Ole Miss game where South Carolina's just giving up points, like it's candy on Halloween. It really leads to. I mean, there was that stretch, Tim. It's amazing to even go back and look at. And I think there was records being shattered, if I remember, about points given up. But the defensive look, the last 5 games. I think a lot of you are like me out there. The last 5 games, 6 games of the year, 52, 48, 59, 45, 41, and then a 7. You only gave up 17 against Missouri. 5 of the last 6 games, you give up 40 points or more to LSU, A&M, Ole Miss, Georgia, and Kentucky. And Kentucky, by the way, offensively not supposed to be any good last year. It still puts up a 41 spot. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to listen to what the guys are saying. It's exciting, but it's hard to listen to it and go, okay, yeah, there's going to be drastic change this year.
RL on the YouTube live chat, that is. Jamar Brown sounded like he was tired and frustrated on moving back and forth from linebacker to safety in the last 14 months or so. He sounds like he's now relieved and focused on being in the secondary. Yeah, I certainly heard that as well. The question will be, well, does he fit back there? Can he make an impact at the SEC level as a safety? That's something that is certainly still up in the air, and we'll have to see. He's also the one that mentioned how complex the defense is. And Bill, you talked about how concerned that makes you, because typically you hear coaches talk about how you want to simplify and let guys play fast. Anonymous Texter hit us up a little bit earlier and says, I think the Will Muschamp defense was complex and no one figured it out, mostly our own players. I think that's a fair criticism. If you watch towards the end of the year and those numbers kind of reflect that, what you brought up. Curtis hits us up on the Cool Care Heating and Air text line, says the players must believe. If you think you can't, you won't. No doubt about it. This is what you expect to hear out of players for sure at this time of the year. Another anonymous texter hits us up with the old Mike Tyson line of everyone has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. I think that applies here for sure. Another anonymous texter just asks, I think facetiously, maybe all 11 defenders are rushing the quarterback at once? I'm guessing that's not the plan. That is what I like to do when playing video games sometimes, just go with the old punt block. Sometimes it can be effective if you're playing against someone who doesn't know what they're doing. My 6 and 8 year old like to play that defense. Sometimes it works. I know we don't play Ole Miss this year, Joey says, but can we get a defense that prevents us from seeing Lane Kiffin's play sheet go up in the air? LOL. And again, that is the gap, the competition gap you feel like that this defense has to overcome with everything they gave up last year. Travis says he agrees with me about 90%, 10% of me, Travis says on the Facebook live stream, believes there is talent on both sides of the ball that the last staff didn't get much out of or put in positions to have success. I'm with you on that, Travis. There's certainly more talent on the roster than we saw have production on the field recently. The question is how much, and then how much the new coaching staff can get out of that. How much of Clayton White's defensive scheme will put those guys in position to make plays, and then can they make those plays? 803-404-6100. If you would like to weigh in, a final call or text. Dramatic conclusion of the show coming up here. Let you hear one more word from Gamecock football players from yesterday's media availability. It's the early game here on 107.5 The Game.
This is Gamecock basketball head coach Frank Martin, and you're listening to 107.
Need to tell you about somebody who has come to my house and helped us out and really I know can help you out as well, especially at this time of year where we're talking football and it's fantastic and everybody's getting ready for football season. Also, at my house, that means getting ready to get back to school, and we need all the help we can get. Zero Res Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning has helped us out at my house. They've been out to my house a couple of times to clean my carpets, an area rug for me, freshen up the tiles in both the kitchen and the bathroom. Did an amazing job. Really impressed my wife with the results, which is key at my house. Also, Zero Res does it differently than anybody else. It's why I'm happy to recommend that they come out to your house and do it for you. A patented powered water system is what Zero Res uses. No harsh chemicals involved in their cleaning process. That's especially important at my house where I have boys of 8, 6, and 1, and I am unfortunately more associated with my floors than I've ever been before, especially around mealtime with that 1-year-old chucking stuff all over the place. Zero Res had our house looking and feeling its best, and they can do that for you as also no leftover soapy residue in our carpet. That's why our carpets have stayed cleaner longer. Yours can as well. Take advantage of their summer sale. 3 rooms of carpet cleaned right now for $119 plus a free hallway when you mention me, Tim Hill. Give them a call at 803-262-4020. Book online right now at ZeroResColumbia.com. That's Zero Res. Spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean. Oh, the sun is officially up on Lake Murray, and Bill's camera is blinking in and out on us. That's why I haven't put him back there. Attaboy, fixed it.
Yeah, just shade it from the sun a little bit. Yeah, that's right. We don't have Patrick to give us our Hard Knocks breakdown. Last night was episode 1.
Yeah, if anybody saw it, please let us know. Our old morning show, guys. So that 10 to 11 p.m. slot, it's got to be extra special for me to stay up and paying $20 a month or $15 a month for HBO Max ain't happening in my house these days.
I was reading the Florida State practice reports just to see. Apparently, Keir Thomas has had a good first few days there, but they haven't been in pads. See what Penn State is saying, if Penn State is saying anything about John Dixon. James Franklin.
You did like you weren't 22 at 12. Like,
I feel like, granted, it would be a pain in the rear end, but to just go through all the coaches' press conferences, like I'm looking, and just have a montage of coaches saying, "I'm excited." Like I'm reading, like James Franklin. We couldn't be more excited to be out there on the grass, working together.
I'd like to hear it like in the least excited voices, especially.
Yeah, get like the
Frank Martin's the king of that. Frank Martin and Don Staley both at their press conferences are like, "We're really excited about what we have going here. Boy, just can't wait to get on the court. Can't wait for these guys."
That's like the Levitard. They play. I mean, that'd be a lot of work, but the Levitard thing where they do on Monday or Tuesday of useless coaching sound montage. Because I'm reading, they've got a transcription of the James Franklin press conference from Monday, and it says like, where was it? Excited about our identity being similar to what it's been the majority of our time. Back to spreading the field, making people defend 53 1/3, creating explosive plays, trying to put as many defenders in conflict as possible.
It's so ridiculous. I would love to see that split up with what he was talking about this time last year.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, we're cutting the field down this year, only going 26 3/4 They're just going to go on one side or the other. And we're going to let defenses kind of bunch up against our guys, and it'll be fun. So ridiculous.
I mean, here's another one. He said he's talking about the interior offensive line, because this is what everybody says, right? When you talk about the interior offensive linemen, we think we've got a really good group of guys that are competing for those three inside spots: guard, center, and guard. Does anybody say they don't have a good group of guys?
Good point.
An extremely marginal group of guys in the middle. Gonna be a difficult thing to scheme around, but I'm a pretty good coach, so I'm gonna do my best.
Yeah, I was walking through the other day. Those guys competing on the interior are actually not good guys at all. They weren't watching film.
We are going to have to hide our inside linebacker as much as possible, because that position, I'm telling you,
This entire season is a crapshoot.
My staff that I hired of recruiters just stinks.
Yeah.
All right, about to head back in.
2, please. I'll do a quick liner first.
Okay.
Number 2.
Okay. Ezra.
Saw some great pictures. The Greens are back at Charwood Golf Club. Social media saw those pictures yesterday. We'll be back August 27th, a couple of weeks from Friday. The 14th anniversary 107.5 The Game Golf Tournament tees off at 10 a.m. Love to have you out there. Captain's Choice event. You can sign up right now as a foursome or as an individual. Just give Charwood a call to register. 803-755-2000 for the 14th anniversary 107.5 The Game Golf Tournament presented by Integrated Media. Right now, I wanted to let you get the last word from a Gamecock player this morning, from fourth-year defensive lineman Rick Sandage, talking about the transition between Will Muschamp's defense to Clayton White's defense here after a handful of preseason practices.
It's different. It's been a little struggle me trying to understand the defense. It's like it's very special, and it's going to be some high impact coming this season.
So Billy played that clip from Rick Sandage last this morning because I think it represents our entire conversation in a lot of ways, where players talking yesterday excited and kind of revealing that it hasn't been easy to make the transition. When you hear a guy like Jamar Brown say that it's a complex defense that offenses won't figure out, I understand why you and a lot of others hearing that out there this morning raise your eyebrows and get a little concerned that if it's, when you hear complex, you translate that to, oh boy, get easily confused, or there could be some miscommunication, and not everyone would be on the same page every single play, and that's not a good thing for a defense for sure.
Yeah, that's going to be another just interesting wrinkle to watching the develop. I don't know if I've ever gone into a season with South Carolina where I know less about what I'm about to see. I mean, Tim, you and I have been around for a long time, and I can't say.
Will Muschamp's first season?
Nah, I felt that was a really bad team. Like I don't feel that team had the amount. And I'm not, again, when I say the amount of talent, that makes it sound like I'm talking about a team who's capable of winning 9 games. But I feel like this team at least is sitting here with better players today than when Muschamp took over the program. I mean, you do have
a team did go 6-6 in the regular season.
I think we all agreed. Well, we all said that was one of his better coaching jobs.
It's true. I mean, Vegas is over under right now, 3.5 for Gamecock total wins. Just trying to keep it in perspective.
I think Vegas is the same thing. We don't know what a Marcus Satterfield offense really looks like. You have film from Western Kentucky on Clayton White, so we can kind of look at that. And at least if you want to go back and watch some Western Kentucky football last year, maybe spend the day on YouTube doing that. Yeah, okay, you can get a better feel. But man, there's a lot of questions. I mean, don't even know what hat is Shane Beamer going to wear a visor on the sideline? Is he hatless? Will he go with the Lincoln Riley shirt? Does he go polo?
The Lincoln Riley shirt?
Isn't that, well, you know what I mean? Like the kind of, I guess it's like those thin shirts. Isn't that what Lincoln Riley wears?
Is it like the long sleeves? Is that what he does? Maybe the long sleeve tees or something? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
I have no
like
idea.
that.
Didn't see that coming. I didn't see your thought process going. A lot of question marks on this team. Like, what is Shane Beamer going to wear on?
Well, we don't know.
RL's got an answer for you. Beamer will be in a baseball cap.
I don't know. Sounds like a poll question.
It sounds like you're
Beamer
spinning
goes
out of
vest.
control.
Does he wear the vest? Does he vest? I don't know.
It's a good thing this show has ended, I think, for maybe everyone. Dan Patrick Show coming up next here on 107.5 The Game.
Basketball head coach Frank Martin, and you're listening to 107.5.
You know, typically, shouldn't that have been a question I posed? Not you?
He is the guy that wears the white belt. Very good point, Craig. Very good point.
It's almost time for a new white belt.
Dude, that would be a bold move if Beamer makes that his stamp on the program. There's a white belt.
And some shiny white shoes. That'd be amazing.
White
Cousin
belt,
Eddie.
flip flops. Or goes bare feet on the sideline just to
I like
ground himself.
I think well, you got to have a little traction. So I think you go with was it Jim Sonyfield golf sandal cleats?
Right. Do that.
Okay.
I could see if anybody's going shoeless, apparently it's going to be probably Luke Day or Chip Morton, the assistant strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah, I can see that.
Especially in November.
Oh, wow. This just broke. This would have been a big story. Jasmine Gortman, the kid from right here at Keenan, has decided to forego his college eligibility and has signed with Overtime Elite.
Another trend, but the first time we've seen it so close, huh?
Yep.
Wow.
Well, the first time since Jermaine O'Neal did it about.
Wow. So that just came out 2 minutes ago.
Well, that's your 30-minute monologue in hour number 3 tomorrow if you need it.
There you go.
It can definitely be used.
All right, Tim, do you want me to cut a actually, let me say goodbye to you guys before we do the radio business. You'll be on the live stream. Have a great day as well, Hope. Thank you, Travis. Appreciate it, Anthony. Talk to you guys again tomorrow morning.